The intention of justice is to see that the guilty people are proven guilty and that the innocent are freed. Only we have a problem here.
Welcome, welcome, welcome. We are taking a look at this case from a psychological perspective.
Fun. Everybody was really having a good time.
Does Brian Albert strike you as the kind of guy who is always having fun? No. And here's a news flash for this judge. Mental health professionals have solutions.
They made an arrest. I got the guy who killed Danny.
There's like a mix between sadness and anger because that's the moment for him when he really started to believe that his mother was involved, right? He closes his eyes because he's now remembering. There is a huge psychological component to what was going on here. And according to this group, Brian Albert Jr. gets like the most celebrated birthday hour of anybody ever. Like every 30 seconds, someone's like, happy birthday! Right? She's trying to lump Colin into that earlier group.
Somebody jumps in as a journalist, draws attention to it, in a light that is not good for the prosecution. I mean, and there are serious allegations of corruption in the DA's office and the state police.
Oh my God, it's not like his 21st birthday.
What happened outside was separate from anything that happened inside.
The most incriminating 911 call.
They're in front of his parents having text messages.
Definitely someone should give you a gun and a badge.
Horrible text messages read back as if he's the aggrieved party.
Hold on, have each of you been called murderers?
Who wants to be the one to give Matt the bad news?
I wanted to prove or to demonstrate.
I don't know where the dog was. I didn't hear any barking. Her name is Sunny. She was named after Santino Corleone.
To the side, in the side yard.
Say hi, everybody. There's my Johnny. Hello. That's my Johnny.
Sunny barks if you walk by my window and sneeze. You're not really going to deny this, are you?
It's so weird. It's like the Inside Out, upside down. Narnia.
Really
I would get at some point in a timely fashion and then turn it over.
Know if we had it enough, or we had it all, I should say.
Kill me. Not having any observable or detectable electrical activity would be asystole.
Means death. 3 separate tab IDs. The thing he had to encourage her to do was not to testify.
You know, and Julia Albert responds to the text message from John, and she goes, "My biggest fear in life is ending up on Turtle Boy."
Stop it.
Oh, you never seen that? Oh, I gotta get you that. Let me.
No way.
Oh yeah,
That's wild.
Yeah, I gotta dig that up.
God save the Commonwealth of Massachusetts.
People are terrified of him. They're absolutely terrified of him. And how do we know that? We know that from the mega motion. Just another day for me, right? Which means it was just not an ordinary day for somebody else. Just when you thought you were out, they pull you back in.
Karen Reed plots. She fabricates a conspiracy.
I am just a person who likes to understand. That's going to increase the likelihood that we're going to take some action.
Here she is.
I'm so sick.
Gotcha. Okay, so your sister.
My sister Jillian, yes.
Oh, it's funny. But then he's got part of his shirt untucked. His back pocket is kind of hanging out.
Testified that. So testified that. So.
And showing solidarity, you can see them there.
It's about getting justice for John O'Keefe. There clearly is an issue of integrity.
How dare they?
Justice for all. Only we have a problem here.
Welcome, welcome, welcome. This is the I Don't Belong Here show, and I am your host, Samantha Benigno. I am a behavioral scientist, a career psychotherapist, a sixth-year PhD candidate in clinical psychology, a master's level psychologist and counselor. And today we are discussing all things seeking justice for Boston police officer John O'Keefe. And there's so much going on in Norfolk County. It's like impossible to keep up. It's like a full-time job just to keep up with all that is going on right now. Now, of course, we have this hearing, I think, on Friday with Karen Reed in the civil case. We've had a lot of activity with that over the last 48 hours, right? Starting with a threat from attorneys for the McAlberts that they're going to sue Karen and Aidan for defamation. And then immediately following that, like hours later, Karen drops the 47-page civil suit, which lays out what most of us, what we already know, but it lays it out beautifully. And we get to see what the case against these people, the people in the House, and of course, Tully and Buchanan and Proctor, what it is going to look like. So we're starting to get a sense of what might happen, what type of, I guess, I don't even know if it's discovery. Is it called discovery in a civil case? Who's going to be deposed, what they're going to be asked about, what kind of evidence might turn up as we move along. It could take another decade, but, I guess we'll be here while that's all happening. And then in the meantime, we get news also yesterday that there is a man running for DA, okay, to take the position of Michael Morrissey, who resigns from his position at the Attorney General's office, sells his home so that he can actually live in Quincy, which is in Norfolk County. I mean, think about the commitment, right? Like, you really got to want something if you're going to uproot everything just so that you can run for DA, right? He's not running for president or governor. He's running to be the DA of Norfolk County. And it's almost like this bright light, right? In the land of the darkness, in the land of the lost. So Adam Deitch, I think is how you say his name. We're going to take a quick look at a promo here that I got from the Young Jerks that I want us to take a look at. I did not have a chance to see it yet, so I have no idea what it's going to say, but we're going to take a look at it together. But he was involved with the federal investigation into who killed John O'Keefe. Interesting. And though charges were not brought against anybody, they did, of course, make a very serious effort to try to exonerate Karen Reed by giving her all the evidence that they had. And I guess they had to do that. You could argue they had to do that. But they hired ARCA. They are the ones that brought us two of the world's smartest human beings to help ultimately exonerate Karen Reed from this horror show. And they also, and in Michael Morrissey's email dump a few months back, his personal email dump that we got a hold of, I forget exactly even how that came to be now, it was so long ago, a few months back, maybe 2 months ago, 3 months ago, one of those emails going back and forth was Morrissey asking the feds to investigate Aidan, to investigate Turtle Boy. And they eventually write back and say something like, yeah, they don't see the case in the same way that you do, right? Which was like a nice way of saying F off. So very interesting stuff. So we are going to take a look at that in just a moment. We also got very big news today. This is what I've been waiting for. It's going to take so much effort and time to go through, mind you, but it is going to be one hell of a ride doing so. And that is the order signed by Judge Beverly Cannoni, unbelievable, to release the sidebars. Holy crap. When I saw this, I thought, what? This is going to be wild. So she is ordering that they be transcribed and released, minus any information about the jurors, which is the obvious and logical thing to do, particularly if you're the judge and you stand by the decisions that you make. Why wouldn't you release the sidebars, right? Unless you have something to hide. So this was really the only decision that she could make, that they could make. So that is going to be amazing. God only knows when we will actually get it. But man, that is going to be so fun. Because there's going to be so much stuff in those sidebars. It is going to be insane. Going to be insane. I cannot wait. I've been wanting those sidebars for a very long time. So that is going to be a fun read, and I cannot wait for them to be released. What else? Oh, the other thing, just because we need more news. So in the Aidan Kearney case, in the witness intimidation case against Turtle Boy, they had a deadline of 3 days ago. The DA's office had a deadline of 3 days ago to respond to Mark Bettero's mega motion and the several affidavits that he has had to submit as supplemental reports since the mega motion, right? Trying to get this case dismissed. And the mega motion, if you have not seen the mega motion, you got to go back. Melanie had, I think, like 3 days of a stream of reading it all the way through with the links. It was outstanding. Lawyer, has one. I'm sure Brother Counsel, a lot of people have streams with the mega motion. Definitely. If you have not heard it, do that right away. It's huge. It's huge for the Karen Read case. And I decided that in my Who Killed John O'Keefe series, video series, is going to be 10 parts. And one of those parts is going to be just Aidan and the mega motion. And the reason for that, if you are trying to figure out what happened to John O'Keefe, what's the role of the people in the house, there may not be any more incriminating evidence in that case than the mega motion, because what it so clearly highlights is that within hours of Aidan Kearney writing his very first blog post on this case, on the Karen Read case, the very first one in April of 2023, within hours, the McAlberts are trying to stop him, with a urgency that would make you think that somebody is about to jump off a cliff, right? I mean, it's wild. It's almost like they were waiting for it, right? They were waiting for Aidan Kearney. And we know, and Aidan knows, right? We all know how they feel about Turtle Boy because they found a text in John O'Keefe's phone to and from Julie Albert saying, "My worst fear in life is to be on Turtle Boy." So they knew exactly who he was, and that was why they were so adamant about getting him to shut up, right? Shutting him down. And it's shocking. And I think I even asked Aidan this while he came on with me, did you have any idea that these people were so vigorously trying to stop you and have any idea at all? I mean, for 6 months? So April, May, June, July, August, September, for months, these people are doing everything they can to try to shut him down. And he's just has no idea, right? He's just carrying on his merry way, has no clue. And to me, it's wild. And it is so clear that there is a personal motive to try to stop him, right? They are desperately terrified of him. It's wild. It is absolutely wild. And you'll note, if you're familiar with Turtle Boy at all, you know that he gets defamation suits against him like the way people hand out candy, right? Like, he's got all these defamation suits that come from all these different places. He's got people in different states suing him for God only knows what, because of what he says, right? Because of the words that come out of his mouth. But guess who didn't do that, right? And you could argue, you could argue that maybe they didn't think they had to. Why do that? Why pay money for your attorneys when you can just have the DA do it? I guess you could make that argument. You could just sick Brian Tully on someone. But that, to me, would be the most obvious way that people try to shut him down, have tried in the past, right? And if you really believe that Karen Reed did this, if you're innocent, then what would stop you from doing that? Because you know that you didn't do it, so there's only one other person that could have, unless, in the middle of the night, there really was a plow that came along and hit John O'Keefe, right? Which, of course, is not the case. I don't want anyone to speculate wildly about that. I'm simply saying, if you really didn't do this, what in God's name would stop you from suing somebody for defamation? Because you didn't do it, right? You see what I'm saying? So the mega motion is important. And the reason I bring it up is because the deadline to respond to it from the prosecutor's office passed 3 days ago. And in the past, I saw that Bettero was on with Justice Served, I think yesterday. Shout out to Justice Served. Love those guys. I saw Bettero saying that in the past, when Cosgrove had been running late on something, he just called him up or emailed and said, hey, is it okay if I get this to you tomorrow? No problem. But not this time. So what the hell is going on there, right? They're supposed to go back to court, I think, on December 6th, maybe? And then we're not even going to get into the Brian Walsh stuff. That is also a Norfolk County case. So it's like, what the hell is going on in that county? And there's more. There's, a lawsuit that was filed against them that they lost for discrimination. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff going on. So we're not going to have time to get into that. I don't want to digress. So that is the situation tonight. We have so much to do. So typically it doesn't take me more than, I want to say, 3 days to finish a video, right? Normally I can kind of get through them pretty quick. But this one has gotten me stumped now for days. I've been stuck on it, right? And it's more police corruption. But one of the things that wound up coming into it was Brian Tully and his role in all of this. So because I had already had it all pulled up and ready to be released in this video that I've been working on for days, and because I've discovered new stuff from Brian Tully, things I just didn't look at before, things I didn't notice before, it seemed like the perfect time to help out, to throw a bone to the Karen Reed civil team with some suggestions about ways that they can bring Brian Tully in even more. Because right now, as it stands, of course, as the supervisors, Buchanan and Tully are, responsible for what Proctor says and does. But to me, Brian Tully is the guy. I mean, it's not Michael Proctor, although Michael Proctor, thank God for his ineptitude and absurdity, because we got all the text messages from him. So thank you to Michael Proctor for being himself and acting as he typically did in reference to this case. But make no mistake, it was not Michael Proctor's decision whether or not to throw down some taillight pieces, right? That did not come from him. That came from the higher ups, the up above, right? So we're going to talk about that tonight. And we are going to get back into Ms. Jen McCabe. And since Monday, as I said on Monday that I would consider doing, I did do some comparing of Jen McCabe from her first statement to her second, and did investigate closely some topics that we are going to take a look at. So we have got so much to do. And how are all of you? How are you guys? How is everybody? Welcome to everyone in the chat. You guys are the best. You're awesome. Welcome. I'm so grateful to have you here with me tonight. This is going to be lots of fun. Thank you again to Denise, in case I forget to say it later, for being the best moderator in the universe. Okay, we are going to start with this very quick, I think it's a minute-long promo of our potential, or I guess the new candidate for the DA position. He is a former prosecutor, attorney Adam Deitch, I think is how you say his name. Some people I heard saying Deitch, but I think it's the way it is spelled. It sounds like it would be Deitch. Well, we're going to find out maybe here. Let's find out now. Right, let's go. We're bringing it up. Okay.
Everyone deserves to live in a community where we feel safe, where we have trust in our leaders to serve with competence, integrity, and professionalism. My name is Adam Deitch. I grew up in a community with safe streets, good policing, and faith that those in power were honest, hardworking public servants. Until 10 days ago, I served as a federal prosecutor in Boston. I took on cases throughout Massachusetts: bank robberies, gun and drug cases, child exploitation, cyber stalking, and all kinds of fraud. But what I've spent most of my time doing is trying to root out public corruption in our state, including and especially right here in Norfolk County. I left my job in the U.S. Attorney's Office because when I see a problem, I want to solve it. Over the course of my career, I've learned that the overwhelming majority of police officers and prosecutors work hard and do the right thing. I've also been proud to stand shoulder to shoulder with members of law enforcement who work tirelessly to keep our streets safe. But I also know there can be grave consequences when they don't. I've seen firsthand what happens when police and prosecutors take shortcuts, rush to judgment, and then stubbornly won't consider other possibilities. That's what's been happening in Norfolk County for far too long. That's why I'm running for Norfolk County District Attorney as a prosecutor, not a politician. Norfolk County deserves leaders we can be proud of, who serve with honesty, transparency, and accountability. This campaign is about more than electing a new district attorney. It's about building a culture of accountability and integrity where professional police work protects victims, not insiders, and where we follow the evidence no matter where it leads or who it implicates. That's the standard I've lived by prosecuting corruption throughout Massachusetts, and that's exactly what I'll do as the next Norfolk County DA. Together, let's build a district attorney's office we can be proud of.
Interesting. Wow. Okay. What do you guys think? I mean, listen, it sounds great. I mean, he sounds like what we've all been asking for forever, right? I mean, you could really see this guy coming in and cleaning house, which is precisely what needs to happen, right? Could you imagine how incredible would that be if the Norfolk County DA's office had an honest, good, hardworking, a person in charge that was actually like a legitimate prosecutor? Like, could you imagine? Wow. I mean, that would be incredible. So, let's see. I wish I could vote, right? Hi, Sherry. Yeah, I mean, right? This guy sounds like the real thing. And of course, selfishly, as someone who wants desperately to see justice for John O'Keefe, I mean, this person is the guy or one of them who investigated the case. So he would know more than we do about what happened, right? Because he's got all the information that we have and then all the information that we don't. And my guess is that if you're, a federal prosecutor, you can probably get your hands on basically any piece of information that you want, right? So, very, very interesting development. Very, very interesting development. And by the way, what a smart move on his part. I mean, if what you want is to be the DA in this county, I don't really know why you'd want that job. It's going to be a nightmare, I'm sure, right? For many, many reasons. I'm sure it is, a tough job. But I mean, to me, this is like a lock. This is a no-brainer, right? If you live in Norfolk County, the whole world is coming out to try to get rid of Michael Morrissey, who's just, inept, incompetent, obviously has no moral compass at all. I mean, it's just, fill in the blank here. So, yeah, very interesting. That's right. He knows all the details of the case and then some, right? So everything that we know and much, much more. Fascinating. So, we'll see. I heard somebody saying that, who said this? Tech Savvy said that that Krusty Panties is already trolling him, and she's interesting. I'm gonna talk a little bit about her in just a little bit as we get through some of my theory of the case as to why it is that Michael Proctor isn't the real villain in this case. Incompetent, absurd, he's a lot of things. I mean, a jackass, right? Probably if you could pick out of 1,000 people who you would want to be a police officer, he would definitely not be one of them, right? He would be like the last person in the world you would ever want to be having a gun and a badge. So that is definitely not somebody that you want, running around playing bad guy or playing cop, right? That's kind of that's the vibe you get from Michael Proctor, right? Like he was playing the role of a police officer, but he just did not have the authority to pull off what happened here. And the more that I am in the evidence, you guys, lately, because I've been doing this series on who killed John O'Keefe, I have been so just entrenched in the evidence. I have been sort of up to my eyeballs in it. And because of that, I'm seeing all these things with the police in general that I never saw before. Great question. That's a great question, Joey Sticks. Joey 3 Sticks. I don't know. I guess not necessarily, right? Because he retired, he resigned from that case. I mean, from his job, from his position. So it doesn't necessarily mean that. But it's a really good question. Certainly. You could make the argument that perhaps part of why he's leaving is to seek justice. I mean, I have no idea if that's true. I could speculate all day, right? Perhaps there was somebody else making the decisions saying, no, we don't want to press charges. And so his best option was, maybe I'll just become the DA and then I get to, hand out justice however I want to. So it's a great question, though. I don't think so. Not necessarily. My instinct is that they are not still investigating because unless, that it came up maybe as part of another bigger RICO case that they're looking at, right? Like maybe something else with cops and corruption and somehow this got tied in. I don't know. But my sense is that they're not investigating only because we haven't heard anything about it, which I guess you could argue we wouldn't, but it doesn't seem like they're being investigated, right? I mean, what the hell do I know? I know no more than you do about whether or not that could be true. But I don't think necessarily that him resigning means that they are or are not pursuing the case. Here's something else, and I was talking to Denise about this. Interesting. So in this country, any FBI office can investigate in a different state. So, if you haven't ever seen Kenneth Berkowitz? No, not Berk. Why am I blanking on the former police chief's name right now? It's not Berkowitz, right? Clearly. What is his last name? Is that right? What is the last name of the former chief of police for the Canton PD? Why am I just blanking on it? I don't know why. It is Berkowitz. It is. Wow, I never realized it was. I sang it out loud right now. It felt like somehow that name doesn't seem right. So if you go back and watch his retirement party when he left the job as the chief of police for the Canton PD, you'll see what I mean by this. It's a very small community in the Boston area. Very, very small. And it wasn't until I saw that video and watched the whole thing. It's boring. It's long. A lot of speeches, right? But you can really tell these guys are all tight. I mean, they're in it together, and there were feds there. So to me, I know that it did not appear from the emails that we saw that the DA's office and the feds, the local feds, were in a love affair of any kind, certainly, right? They definitely were separate. I'm also aware that they could be tied together in so many ways that so much so that at the end of the day, right, their boss or somebody else in a powerful position is like, don't pursue it. So my thought is maybe the better move is to try to put pressure on the feds in a different state or somewhere else, I guess. I don't know if there's many federal offices in the state of Massachusetts. My guess is maybe there's one on the western side of the state because it's not a small state, maybe. But that's what you'd want to do, right? To me, because any federal office can investigate in a different state, maybe that's the better way to go, right? Because these guys are definitely all in a very, very close circle where for sure everybody knows everybody, whether everybody likes everybody, whether everybody is tight with everybody else, maybe not. But when you watch Berkowitz, when you watch his retirement, you'll see exactly what I mean. And it was really eye-opening. It was a very eye-opening experience. Obviously, logically, and from the case and from the Karen Reed trials, we know that these people are close. We know that, right, Proctor's from Canton, lives down the street from all the other cops, and he's a state police officer, and, whatever, they're Canton cops. But when you see how close this chief of police was to all these other cops, firefighters, feds, I mean, people from all over the place in law enforcement, it's like, whoa, okay. Yeah, this is that, they're not messing around, right? Jean sends $9.99, says, isn't district attorney appointed? It's not a full-time job, right? Could it be FBI running for district attorney? That'd be the greatest. So no. So, okay, each state operates the DA's office differently, right? That's my understanding, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong. In this state, they are elected. In other states, I believe they are appointed by an elected official. I believe. I'm trying to think, am I conflating that with just judges in general? But you guys, correct me if I'm wrong about that. But definitely in the state of Massachusetts, they are elected. But it's really interesting just because of, all these cases, and I'm sure this is true for so many of us. You realize that from state to state to state, there can be enormous differences Just in my boyfriend's house is literally on the Connecticut-Massachusetts border. Like, it's like a corner of the property is in Massachusetts and the rest of it is in Connecticut. And it's fascinating how different the legal system is on one side of the lawn versus the other, like night and day difference. And just for example, jury selection. It seems like a silly little thing, but you guys remember the jury selection issues, just from the Karen Reed case, some of the frustrations there. Is a completely different animal in Connecticut than it is in Massachusetts. So it could be, it could be very different depending on where you are. It looks like just from the chat, it's mostly elected. It seems like everybody is saying elected. So maybe it's just universally that they're elected. Yeah, I'm reading the chat here. Massachusetts is nuts. Like, and I heard Bettero say this, and I had been saying this too just days earlier. I think of Massachusetts, maybe this is because I did live there for 10 years. Maybe, the way that I think of it is like, it holds a special place in my heart. You would think of Massachusetts as like a just place, like a place that, in a way, it's like the birthplace of, different aspects of our country, right? It was one of the first, like the heartbeat of the way that the U.S. really started to form and develop, and in politics, and I just always thought of Massachusetts as a just place, and you would have guessed, or I would have guessed, that of all the places, this would be the one where your constitutional rights are something that are precious and held in the highest regard. But that is not the case. Not at all, right? Not at all. I think of injustice. I think of places like, I don't know, maybe Alabama. I'm just picking at random. I don't mean to pick on Alabama in particular. I'm just like, that's a place that I think, okay, like the Jim Crow South. I think of those places generally. Okay, corruption, I could buy that, right? But not Massachusetts. And so it's really tragic to see how this whole community has evolved. It's just horrible, absolutely horrible. And unfortunately, right, we're going to be talking about it even more, because what I'm going to show you now has to do with police corruption. And, it's bad. It's like just a bad scene. And you could see, we talk about culture and you talk about a toxic culture. Well, it turns out, right, Massachusetts isn't a stranger to toxic culture in law enforcement. And today, I'm going to bring this up so you can see this. Somebody sent me this. Let me see if I can make it bigger. All right. Let's add you to the screen. Okay.
State police ordered to pay millions of dollars in a discrimination case. A jury ordering the agency to pay $6.8 million, saying it discriminated against female and minority troopers. A lawsuit accused leadership of enabling a discriminatory process for hiring and promotions that kept women and people of color from rising in rank. A state police spokesperson responded to the judgment, writing, "We continue to implement promotional processes that align the department with the national best practices and strengthen our workforce by evaluating candidates who not only possess the necessary skills and experience, but also uphold the values essential to delivering excellent police services."
I mean, it never stops, right? It just doesn't stop. It's crazy. Absolutely crazy. And you think about Noble, Colonel Noble, it's like, man, that can't be an easy job, right? To come into what is just a horribly toxic culture and work environment. And we don't have to see any more than what we've already seen from the DA's office in Norfolk County and the Massachusetts State Police there, we don't need to see any more to know that it is not a good look in the state of Massachusetts when it comes to the culture of law enforcement, right? It is not good. Also, we look at the Kelsey Fitzsimmons case. Oh my God. I mean, that's not Norfolk County, but I mean, does it get any worse? The police department that she, I guess, is still technically, an employee of, right? Because as far as I know, she's not officially been let go. Is that right? Unless, correct me if I'm wrong, guys in the chat. But that particular office, the police chief there, I think, has already been sued by a couple of different female employees, former female employees, for all kinds of, misdeeds. It is a incredibly discriminatory environment against women, apparently, and very openly, like a flagrantly disrespectful environment towards women, where the goal is to actively make women police officers uncomfortable. Allegedly, like, their bathroom was never kept up, and so it was or like I don't know if it's their bathroom. Police have like a changing area. I think of like my high school gym, a locker room, right? I don't know, but apparently the female locker room, whatever, was never kept up, and so it's just like a very gender discriminatory environment, apparently. And Kelsey Fitzsimmons is an attractive woman. I can imagine that her journey in that department hasn't been easy. And when I started reading about not her specifically, but that department and that county and some of the issues there, I realized that maybe that's part of what's going on with this judge. Now, I don't know that, but I mean, something's going on with that judge, right? I mean, if just when you thought it couldn't get any worse, the Kelsey Fitzsimmons case is like the poster child for worse. And that woman is like a monster with a capital M. Holy crap. Yeah, I mean, right. And then, yes, thank you for reminding me, you guys, Sandra Birchmore. The DA, we see from Michael Morrissey's emails, this is a true story. We see from Michael Morrissey's emails that he didn't know anything, had no clue that there was any reason to suspect it wasn't a suicide, right? Like, he's forwarding. I mean, so we kind of get a sense of like what his habits are from his emails. It seems like he gets into the office and he sits there and he starts like forwarding out emails, CCing the office. So of course his henchman, Brian Tully, is on every email. And then the assistant DAs are on some, right? Depending on the situation. But it's amazing. He just starts forwarding out all these emails and he's going on different like news outfits. Whatever he finds, he's sending it off. So one of the things that we see is there's a story about the feds investigating the Sandra Birchmore case, and he sends it out like with a big question mark. Like, could this be? I mean, does it get any more incriminating than in the Sandra Birchmore case? Right? Oh my God. Falwell is like the world's biggest monster. And it's not like a secret. How many thousands of texts did Nicholas Guarino just ignore, pretend didn't exist? Thousands. Like, there's no way. And with the personality of Sandra Birchmore and with some of the limitations and whatever else, she probably, think about how many text messages she was sending to him, right? She had a fantasy of like that, I think, just my understanding, and I might be wrong, it's been a while since I've really dug into the Sandra Birchmore case, but I did do, I did spend some serious time on that case, maybe a year and a half ago when their when one of the podcasts on the case first came out. That was when I first learned about her story, which was a while ago now. And very, very, very interesting. But there's a lot of information in that case. And it wasn't hidden. She had texted this guy, had been in a relationship with him for years. She told everybody about it. Right? I mean, it's insane. It's just insane. So they knew, I mean, certainly they knew. It's absolutely wild. Either they knew or they should have known. And I guess that brings me to my next, really, my question for all of you, right? What do you think? Do you think that the cops in the Karen Reed case were just totally incompetent and really believe that Karen Reed is responsible for the death of John O'Keefe? Or do you think that they were intentionally trying to frame somebody that they at least suspected was innocent? Right? Yeah, it is. I mean, it's scary, right? It's scary to think about. I know when I'm in Massachusetts and I'm driving, I get a little bit more nervous. If there's like a police on the road near me, I'm like, I do. I definitely do. I definitely have it in my head that Massachusetts is not a safe place the way that I had never considered it before. Now, when I'm in Massachusetts, I'm on the other side of the state, so it's not like I'm driving around in the county, which, but if you are, I mean, that is scary, right? Like, if you're Aidan Kearney, I mean, come on, it's got to cross his mind. Periodically, it must come into his head that at any moment, Brian Tully could be waiting around the corner to just, put the handcuffs on again. It's got to be. It's got to be. Okay. Baby Shark sends $5, says Proctor believed it 100%. People like Tully knew it was a fix. Okay, I love it. I love that. I think that makes sense to me. Absolutely could very well be. And a couple of things. So we're going to get into it. I'm going to play this video in just a moment because I do want to get to Jen McCabe tonight. And if I don't get to it soon, we won't. But the one, I guess, question for me, they moved so fast here. And, the more that I look at this evidence, the more I realize how quickly they moved. By 2 p.m., literally 2 o'clock in the afternoon on January 29th, Brian Tully is so sure that she did this that he reaches out to the CERT team, to Kevin O'Hara, and he says, hey, are you guys available to come tonight? Right? And they have to get it, both have to get it approved by their, up the chain of command, whatever. But he reaches out to him like on a preliminary basis. Now, I will tell you, I've not done a full analysis of O'Hara in terms of looking for deception, but there are some suspect moments at best with Kevin O'Hara. There are some things I very much doubt, and some moments, again, I have not, to be fair, I did not do a baseline, so I cannot say with any degree of certainty this guy's telling the truth or he's not. But there are definitely some shady moments, without a doubt. And so he's important, and we're going to take a look at some of those tonight in just a minute. But he's important, and by 2 o'clock, Tully is so sure that he's already in his mind planning to throw some taillight down, right? By 2 o'clock. Because in Tully's mind, he knows that at that moment, these guys, so it's like 2:30 around when I think Buchanan and Proctor leave the hospital, I believe. I want to say they're leaving the hospital. right? Because the first thing they do is they go to Jen McCabe's. They speak with Jen, Matt, and Brian Albert. Then they go to the hospital. They leave the hospital, and remember, Proctor sees the shoe or one shoe, and he's absolutely convinced right then and there that it must have been a car accident, right? So based on Jen McCabe, the I hit him nonsense, well, actually, I take that back. I guess she was saying, I'm just thinking back, I want to make sure I'm getting this right. At that time, there wasn't I hit him yet. It was, did I hit him? Right? It was Jen saying, oh, she was showing us the taillight. And she was saying, could I have hit him? Did I hit him? Not I hit him as an actual statement, a fact of guilt. That came later. So at that point, the story that she and Brian Albert are all telling, and Matt are telling Proctor and Buchanan, is that Karen was showing the taillight. Could I have hit him? Did I have hit him? Okay. So then they go to the hospital and they see the one shoe, and they decide from that and that alone, not that he had been in a fight, which would have been the obvious explanation for the injuries, right? Very obviously, he was in a fight. I mean, it's like, But anyway, okay, we'll pretend. We'll go with it. I mean, seriously, these guys should have known. If you're a police officer and Trooper Proctor worked patrol at some point earlier on, right? So he would have seen car accidents. Like they know what it looks like to get hit by a car, and they know whatever they saw, that's not what they saw. They know it, right? It's very frustrating. However, one shoe in the two cases that Proctor had seen in the past at a high speed on a highway, when someone was hit by a car, they were knocked out of their shoes. And so, of course, that's what happened here. I don't know where that high rate of speed chase went down, but that must be what happened. So maddening. So they leave the hospital and they're on their way to confiscate Karen's car. Now, think about this, okay? These fucking assholes, excuse my language, but these guys, they're just the worst human beings alive. 2:00, there's really no evidence, okay? There's no evidence. There's no taillight. Like, there's nothing but Jen McCabe saying, could I have hit him? And that the taillight is cracked. That's what's been said. Okay. And they're so convinced that 2:00, 2:30, Buchanan is calling his boss, Lieutenant Tully, and he's saying, we're going to get the car right now. And there's a problem, boss. There's no evidence. There's no evidence that she did this at the scene. Right? There's no blood at the scene. There's those little tiny drops, right? In the solo cups. There's no big thing of blood. And by the way, one of the first questions that the 911 dispatch officer asks is there blood? Which is such an obvious question, and why that has never come up, I have no idea. But if you are a nurse or a medical professional and you have any level of expertise on this, please in the chat, let us know, given the head injury to John O'Keefe, how much blood would you guess there should have been? People are saying 3 pints. Seriously. Is that true? So I have 3 liters and we have 3 pints. Wow. So that's interesting. How do we know that? Is that I'm seeing a lot of people saying consistently, yeah, the same thing. Which, So if that's true, if he lost 3 liters of blood. Oh, here. Okay. At the town meeting. Oh, I'm trying to find that to put you up. Where did you go? Oh, you guys, the chat moves so fast sometimes. I can't get back. So it says here, I saw it come up. So, okay, all right. So it's been in the documents. It is also, I guess it came up at one of the town meetings that the medical examiner, thank you, the medical examiner said the body had lost. See, did that come up? Did Alessi bring that out? I missed that. That to me is a really significant piece of information. How the hell does that not come up? How is that not as exculpatory as any piece of evidence could possibly be? Right? Are you kidding me? So the blood has always been something that's gotten me. Right from the bat. The blood and the vomit. Those are right, because even Proctor makes a big stink about there being vomit on the shirt and the jeans. Well, if you're hit and you fall back, you can't get vomit on your jeans, right? So if I'm in an accident that immediately renders me incapable of moving my body, which is what happened here, according to the collective, all of the, everyone universally, both sides of the aisle in this case, agree, the injury would have been immediately incapacitating. And that makes sense. It certainly aligns with his phone, the phone evidence, right? He stops using his phone, everything stops. No more activity on the phone. So it's not like he could not have gotten vomit on his body unless he was upright when it happened. But again, these are things that obviously Proctor, Buchanan, and Brian Tully just didn't think about or just didn't care about, because they had already decided literally by 2 o'clock, 2 p.m., they are on their way to get Karen Reed's Lexus. That's where they're going, right? 2:30. I believe Proctor says 2:30. So they're going to get the Lexus. And while they're doing that, Brian Tully hangs up the phone with them and calls his buddy Kevin O'Hara, who he's done investigations with before. And he knows when he's, involved in that investigation, he's going to be the boss. He's going to be the one documenting, quote unquote, the evidence. He's going to be the one who's in charge. When all is said and done, he's in charge of where they search, right? So how easy would it be for Brian Tully, who already in his mind by 2:30 is trying to figure out how are we going to get evidence at the scene? And here's what has always tipped this off. Again, we love Michael Proctor because of his just incredible asinineness. We have his text messages, and they give it all away. They tell us 2 key things. It's easy to get distracted by all the horrific things that he says about Karen Reed. But if you look past that for a moment, there are 2 incredibly important bits of information that we get from those text messages. One is that he has evidence on the mind, right? He has evidence on his mind. That's another animal that we won't be able to prove. So we know that he is sitting there 16 hours, 10 p.m., day that this happens, hours, literally hours after he's handed this investigation. He is sitting around thinking, what am I going to be able to prove? What am I not going to be able to prove? So we already know for a fact, it's not speculation. We know it because he said it to his friends. 100%. That's what he's thinking about. What am I going to be able to prove? What am I not going to be able to prove? Okay. That's number one. Number two, we know that the powers that be want answers, and they want answers fast, ASAP. Right? So whether it's, Commissioner Cox, whether it was Kenneth Berkowitz, whether it was the Massachusetts State Police, the DA, whoever, or all of the above. I mean, we know for sure that it was the DA and the Canton Chief of Police, Kenneth Berkowitz. We know for sure because we get that from Brian Tully, that those are the two with him on the phone that are making decisions about the Canton PD being recused, right? Because of the, quote, appearance of a conflict of interest. Now, it's really important, mind you, that they say that over and over, appearance of a conflict. What they're actually saying when they talk about the appearance of a conflict is that they weren't actually concerned about being recused. Like, there was no real recusal. It was just that they were concerned about other people thinking that there was collusion. So they were worried about the appearance. And so anything that could appear to be like it was colluding was what they were trying to avoid. But they were still working very closely together. And why do we know that? Because we have Proctor's text messages. And like a dum-dum, he's texting Kevin Albert, hey, can you hold this room for me? Can you do this? Can you, Kevin Albert, the guy who is the reason for the appearance of a conflict, can you secure this witness for me? It's like this is the ludicrousy of this situation. But that's why they keep saying appearance of a conflict, because there really wasn't any very legitimate concern. These are not legitimate people. Forget about cops. They're not legitimate human beings. They're just absurd. So right from the start, these guys are out to make it quick and cut and dry. And so they weren't about to actually follow any code of ethics around evidence. They were not going to, we don't have probable cause to arrest Karen Reed. They were just going to make probable cause because, the taillight was cracked and she probably did it. She was drunk and they got into a fight. Because that is how that is the simplicity of the brains that we are dealing with here, right? So they had to help things along. And, to me, it is just so obvious. Can I say with certainty that this is something that they have done? Was it standard operating procedure to plant evidence? Probably not. But in this case, it was a dead police officer. They knew somebody had to answer for it, and it couldn't be Brian Albert. And that's really important. Now, one other thing I want to say about this before we turn to Brian Tully exclusively. I've been talking to Twigs about this, and he's 100% right. This is so true, and it gets overlooked all the time. Brian Albert wasn't just another Boston police officer, and he wasn't just somebody with a reputation amongst his peers, though he was. He does have a reputation amongst his peers for being a badass, for being a fighter, right? He was on the boxing team. He's known. There's all kinds of documented, he gets drunk and then he fights with his coworkers. Okay. Yeah, we could all see that. He's probably an alcoholic. Okay. Makes sense. All makes sense to me. It certainly fits the profile. Couldn't be a bigger stereotype, but fits the profile. But importantly, as Twigs points out, this guy was very well connected. He was hand selected to create a task force out of nothing. He was given the keys to all by himself. They tagged him and they said, you go and you build a task force. You pick who you want to be in that task force. We don't care. You guys are going to be the elite, like Navy SEALs of the Boston Police Department. We're going to use you for cases like the Boston Strangler, for these big, very, these huge cases with a lot of media attention and a lot of interest. You're going to be the team. So he was not just highly regarded, not just somebody that his peers thought of in whatever way. There's a reason why he's the guy that was on Boston's Finest, right? Because I'm sure somebody in a room somewhere was asked the question, like, do you have any cops that you can think of that would be interesting for the show? And first thought that came to mind was Brian Albert, right? He's perfect for that. That's like what he was made to do, right? I mean, he's like built to do this. That's the whole thing. So my guess is he was, a very, very, very well regarded police officer who had clout because of his role in these very elite cases, helping to, solve big, important cold cases like the Boston Strangler, helping to work on, the most important, being the guy who was in charge of one of Boston's most elite task forces. So to me, he didn't even probably have to call in a favor. It was just immediately like, oh, the light bulbs went off. Okay, this is Brian Albert. We have to protect him. So that was as much, I believe, an incentive for anybody in a powerful position looking at this from the outside as anything else, right? That's part of why they wanted it to get wrapped up quickly. Avoid speculation. They did not print Brian Albert's name. Seriously. The Canton PD didn't put his name in the report. They tried to make it at 32 Fairview. Literally, they tried to move the address because they didn't want Brian Albert's name in the report. It's insane how much they tried to protect him. I mean, they really did, right? That's not paranoia. That is what happened. So it was both. We got to find somebody who did this. Karen Reed is the best option we have. And we have to make sure and protect Brian Albert. It doesn't sound or seem like there was ever even a thought. Like it wasn't even a thought in any of their minds to look at Brian Albert. Like it wasn't even a thought. It was just immediately, we're going to get Karen Reed, right? And it had to have been, guys, because those taillight pieces didn't come from Karen Reed's Lexus, at least not from an accident. They may be her taillight pieces, but they didn't come from contact with John O'Keefe, right? So they got there somehow. And that's in part what we're going to take a look at here now, because my argument is, and I really believe this. Sorry, that should not be on. And I really believe this, that it is Tully, not Proctor, who is the real problem here. I mean, the real problem. He's the bad guy. He's the evil guy. Like, he's the henchman. Proctor took the fall for everybody, and he's still taking the fall. And if I'm Michael Proctor, you know what I'd be doing? I'd be running to the first reporter I could find to clear my name and throw all these other people under the bus. Now, I know he's not going to do that. I know he's not going to do that because in his mind, I think he still wants to be a part of the club. He still cares more about being a part of the team. It's like these people feel like they're still in high school. It's like the cool kids, right? Like when I think of, I saw somebody asking Turtle Boy yesterday, why wasn't Carrie Roberts indicted or why wasn't she part of the civil action? Indicted's not the right word, right? They were talking about why Karen didn't have her name listed in the action. And he was commenting whatever. My thought was, well, because she's a victim too. I mean, clearly, you know, as much confidence and bravado, I guess, that it appears Carrie Roberts has or seems to have, because I think that's what they try to, portray. Jen is trying to sell us that she's the leader and she's like the tough one. And to be fair, she is the one that's contacting the DA's office, that's, hounding the witness advocate, Steve Nelson, who, I really think needs to be highlighted because his role in all of this is disgraceful. I mean, really disgraceful. I don't know who this guy is, but man, was he inappropriate with these people on behalf of the DA. And that's the other thing. Well, maybe we'll get to that later. I don't want to get totally distracted, but it did come into my mind. Like, what is Brian Tully doing this for? What are you doing? Why would you jeopardize your credibility, your reputation, your just like core sense of integrity? Because I think Brian Tully likes to think of himself as a legitimate police officer, right? He talks about how he trains. I mean, it's shocking how this could be possible. It's disgraceful. I can't even believe these words are coming out of my mouth. He talks about the fact that he trains other people in how to conduct investigations. He says he travels around the state training other cops how to conduct an investigation. It's like, that can't be true, right? But it's important because number one, you think a guy like that with that much knowledge and expertise could throw down some taillight pieces? Yup, absolutely. Know how to do that and get away with it? Yup, absolutely. Know who to call to help cover whatever you're doing up? Definitely. And he's got the DA covering for him. So he's like the untouchable one, Brian Tully. And even to this day, I don't care what anybody tries to tell us about, oh, he's not in the office anymore. Bullshit. He is still, I have no doubt, is 100% still the DA's right arm because that's the role he was in. He is literally Michael Morrissey's like personal henchman. That's the role that Brian Tully is serving. He is just like doing the bidding of this man, Michael Morrissey, without even asking a question or blinking an eye. Now, why do I say that? Why am I saying that? There's a reason, I promise. There is a reason. Hold on. I'm coming, you guys. I'm sorry, the stream, everyone, it just gets stuck. It's like super annoying. Here we go. Jennifer George says, going back to the vomit, did they test it? It was from him. They did my understanding, I'm pretty sure about this. I want to say I'm like 60% sure. So that's how sure, but I'm pretty sure that it was his vomit, that there was a DNA test on the vomit. I'm pretty sure. So maybe like closer to 70%. Definitely, if anybody else knows for sure, please let us know. But I think so. I think it was his. Remember the DNA evidence guy from the second trial? The one who told us that how there was so many different people's DNA on the sneaker that it was invalid. Like there could be no testing done on the shoe because it's totally invalid. Yeah. No, they're awesome. These people are awesome for sure. But I want to go through and just highlight some of the key reasons why I believe that Brian Tully is really the enemy before we move on to Jen McCabe. So, yeah, number one, Proctor does not have the authority to plant evidence on his own, and I don't think he would ever do anything that wasn't authorized. I think the one thing I will say for Michael Proctor is he loved this job. I think we could all see that. He loved this job, loved it. It was his identity. It was like his passion, right? I mean, we all see how he breaks down. He had to give back the suit, the formal police gear, whatever it's called. You know, he loved the identity, the allure of being a Massachusetts State police officer. And I do not think that he would ever have done anything like plant evidence without Yuri Buchanan and Tully telling him to do it, right? And let's be honest, of course he wouldn't have ever had to, because they, of course, would. Do you have any doubt whatsoever that if the DA wanted Tully to plant some evidence, you don't think he would do it? Come on. I mean, he's essentially a minion at this point. He's like literally like an animal, like his little like dog. It's a terrible thing to say. I feel bad for dogs, even, you know, comparing them with Brian Tully, because he's just such a horribly he's just like a low-life human being. How are you doing this, sir? Do you also know that he was friendly or friends? I mean, they played sports together with John O'Keefe's younger brother, Paul. Like, what? These people. So I don't think that Proctor had the authority to plant evidence, and I don't think he would have ever done it alone. Did he do it? It's a great question. I think, well, we're going to take a look. Yes, he is clearly the DA's henchman. I mean, just to be clear, if you didn't know this, I just picked essentially 5 witnesses, I guess, 5 different people's testimony that were testifying for the prosecutor or as a part of the DA's office to point out how involved Brian Tully was with the Karen Reed cases. Because again, it's easy to just like not look at it. It's not as sexy or interesting as Proctor's texts, but he is the most ever-present constant across both trials, more so than anybody else. Because Adam Lally was ever present in the first trial, but he was relegated to the sidelines in the second, right? And Adam Lally is just like the world's biggest snake ever, but he doesn't have any power or authority without Morrissey, right? I mean, he's not a police officer. He's an attorney.
Okay. 3 weeks ago.
I met with Mr. Brennan and his staff.
And when you say his staff, who else?
I honestly couldn't tell you, sir.
Mr. Lally?
One female, one, I believe, state trooper.
Okay. Had you ever met State Trooper Tully?
Now, I just want to point out, for whatever reason, the video froze and I didn't have time to fix it. So I just put a picture up of Nuttall. But you remember, this was Hank Brennan's like silver star, right? He wanted to use him as like the firefighter who is coming as the hero to rescue John O'Keefe. So, and I mean, we can talk all day about my feelings about Mr. Nuttall and how he was very likely intimidated by Brian Tully being a part of all of the meetings that he sat in to prepare for the trial, right? Think about what it must be like for this guy to have Brian Tully breathing down his neck, wanting him to say the right thing on behalf of the DA's office, right? I mean, think about that. Brian Tully is sitting in on all of the trial prep for both cases, okay? He is so involved. He's picking up witnesses at the airport and driving them to the trial, driving them to the court. That's how involved he is in what's going on. I mean, he was right there every step of the way.
Previously?
Yes, sir. Actually, I believe that was him.
It was State Trooper Tully?
Yes, sir.
Whom you've met with several times, correct?
Prior to that, I believe only once or twice.
He was the one that he has formally interviewed you previously, correct?
I believe he arranged the meetings with Mr. Brennan, but beyond that, I can't speak to.
The conversations with Mr. Morrissey, the elected district attorney, what were the circumstances under which you contacted Mr. Morrissey?
Well, during the course of this trial, the witnesses have been harassed.
That's not my question.
Objection.
But I'm answering your question.
Hold on.
Or was.
I'm going to sustain the objection. Next question.
Thank you. Were you phoning him? Were you meeting him? Were you texting him? That's my question. The circumstances of the communication itself.
I phoned the office asking for a meeting, had a meeting, and then he left a voicemail at some point and texted me and said, I just left you a voicemail.
So, and I wanted to mention this before. To me, the reason why Carrie Roberts is a victim and not, she wasn't intentionally setting forth to try to get Karen Reed. She did lie to the grand jury, but that highlights this point even more. I think one of the things that Jennifer McCabe does really well, she was like, from what I understand, voted as most attractive girl in her high school yearbook. My point being that one of the things I think she does well is she works people, right? Even when we see her at the waterfall, who's she working? Well, she's in a conversation with John and then Karen, not together, but separately, right? So she's that's kind of her thing, right? She knows how to work people. That's why they've elected her in part to be the spokesperson for all of them during the trials, or definitely during the second trial. So to me, Carrie was sort of immediately hooked in by the shared trauma, or at least the trauma that she thinks that they shared of finding John on that morning. And you heard Jen in the second trial, or you will hear if you haven't already. She says, we answered the call. I think that's almost a direct quote, meaning that what made her and Carrie closer is that all they did, we just answered the phone that morning, and then we just wanted to be so helpful. We wanted to help a friend, right? And then we got all this. That's kind of the point of what she's saying, or at least in part. See what I did? You see what I get for helping? Whatever. But the point is, I think that's what Jen did. She ensnared Carrie into this friendship, like if the popular girl at school picked whoever, some random sports player, I don't know, soccer player, neither here nor there, not somebody particularly popular or not, but decides that she's going to essentially, work this person to get them under her spell, to make that person a friend. That's what I think she did here. That's what let's make the timeline. Oh, we'll do that together, And you can see that Carrie almost admits it. She almost tells us that's what happened. Not that Jen was doing anything intentionally, but that is what she did. That they did the timeline and they exchanged ideas about what happened. And, she said everything in threes. Oh my God. Yeah, she did say everything in threes. Oh my God. That's what they were doing. Imagine how many days this goes on for. They talk about making a timeline and like it's something that they did once. This is their whole relationship has been building the timeline, right? I mean, they spend how much time laboring, going over, talking about the events, what happened, because they wanted to figure it out. They wanted to remember, right? And from Carrie's perspective, couldn't you imagine, if you put yourself in her shoes, if I really didn't know what happened to my friend, not unlike Jen, who obviously did know, but Carrie doesn't know that. So from Carrie's perspective, they're in it together. And that's what she wants. You can never underestimate the power of will. When we want something to be true, it isn't just a psychological concept. It will literally, your eyes will see something differently than it is. It shapes how you see what you're looking at, right? So if I want this person to be the person I see them as, well, that's what I'm going to see. It's just like if you've ever been in a relationship and you thought that that person was one way, like when you first met them, they put on their best behavior, right? And you thought they were one way and you're like, oh my God, I love this person. They're amazing. But then over time, you get to know them and it changes how you see them, how you start looking at them. Or maybe you're dating somebody and when it's just the two of you, you feel one way about them, but the second they meet your family and you see them engaging with your family, you're like cringe over it. Like, or that, your aunt isn't going to like them. And so it changes, it colors how you see that person in that moment and sometimes going forward, right? So it's like that. Our psyche is so powerful that it literally trumps the senses. Literally. Right? It's like if you've ever seen or heard of like 10-year-olds who throw a what's it called? It's called like a gross foods party where like they serve like mashed up broccoli in baby diapers or like no, it's disgusting, I know, but like, like they essentially give you the illusion that something is gross when it's really just strawberries or broccoli, but it looks to you to be something else. You would literally smell something that is not there based on the concept in your mind of what you think this thing is, even though it is not that thing. So literally it takes your brain having to make an adjustment to say, oh, wait a minute, this isn't, a diarrhea diaper. This is just broccoli being served to me in a diaper. It has to make the adjustment for you to be able to see what's there clearly. And that is exactly what I think has happened to Carrie Roberts. I think that she has had the wool pulled over her eyes. I think she cannot see clearly what is right in front of her. And, I don't want to say I don't blame her for that, but it is very difficult to get out of. It is very difficult to snap out of, right? We've all been in, I'm sure, or heard of relationships that we kind of wish in hindsight we weren't in, or we could have gotten out of sooner. But it takes time for us to get out of our own way, to stop seeing what we think is going on and to see what is really there, right? So we hope that, for example, we would hope that the O'Keefe family would get to that place. And we would hope that Ms. Roberts would get to that place because these were people that loved John, and I'm sure they want to see justice for him also. The problem is that if you if you're working with something like that, if you're working with such a heavy, insane need to see something a certain way, it's very difficult to drop. Right? It's like, it's hard for the veil to come down. You would have to see so many indicators that something is afoot that it would have to be overwhelming, like really overwhelming.
Okay. Was that the extent of your conversations with Mr. Morrissey, the elected DA?
I had one other meeting with other witnesses.
Okay.
And the DA.
And turning to Yuri Buknik, what were the logistics, I'll use that word instead of circumstances, what were the logistics of you contacting Yuri Buknik? Was it by phone? Was it in-person meetings, text messages, or all of the above?
All of the above.
How many times would you say that you've spoken with Yuri Buchanan?
Spoken or communicated?
Sorry, good point. Communicated with.
Probably 20.
Where was the meeting?
At the DA's office.
Who else was there?
Different times that I would meet with him, Steve Nelson would be there. One time, Brian Tully was there.
And that interview was conducted by whom?
I met at the DA's office with the prosecutor, Adam Lowley.
And there was also a state trooper there?
There was.
Lieutenant Tully?
Correct.
Okay.
Why is Lieutenant Tully meeting with Adam Lowley and Paul Gallagher to prepare for the trial? Why is he there? Like, what possible role is he serving besides being intimidating? I mean, what is your purpose? No, Mark, it's a great question. Was Brian Tully the goodball investigator that could not explain the impact like a kindergartner? No, but my next video is going to explain these two guys and the distinction between them very, very clearly for you. So you will be straight on this question very soon, but you're going to see a little bit more from Brian Tully in just a minute. So hang on and it'll be clear who he is versus that other guy.
On December 5th, 2024, Detective...
I did hear, by the way, that Shannon Burgess did finally graduate from college. So congratulations to you, Shannon, for completing after 17 years. It's quite the effort, quite the achievement, sticking with it.
Lieutenant Brian Tully, you know that name, sir?
Yes, I do.
How do you know that name?
So he is the one who hand-delivered the infotainment and telematics module to our office in South Lake.
Exactly. So he delivered the infotainment module containing the SD card that you talked about on direct examination so that you could attempt to reinstall it in Miss Reed's vehicle for an in-vehicle acquisition attempt, correct?
That was part of it, yes.
That was part of it. Anybody else?
Does anybody understand? So just to be clear what happened there, Shannon Burgess just told us that Brian Tully got on an airplane, I guess, I assume, and flew down to Texas to hand him an SD card from the Lexus. Right? Isn't that what he just said? I got confused by the last bit about trying to conduct some kind of test with that SD card in Karen Reed's vehicle. I'm not sure if he meant the exemplar vehicle there and he didn't say it, but that's what it sounded like. So if you understood that, let me know.
The DA's office there.
The officer or trooper Tully was there at one. Trooper Buchanan was there at one. The witness advocates were there.
It's just disgusting how in Massachusetts, the DA's office has its own little bully club of cops. Can you, do you see how disgraceful that is? Like, how is that possible? How does the DA's office have down the hall its own little configuration of police officers that at will it can just sick on whoever they feel they want to sick them on? I mean, it's so ripe for corruption. It's like it's built into the system. How do you avoid corruption when these are your cops? I mean, how does Morrissey not think of Tully as his? Right? Because they do what he says when he says to do it. It's just unbelievable. It really is.
And again, give or take the particular meeting.
Those are two meetings that you've talked about with Mr. Brennan and others. What about the third meeting?
No, I'm sorry. I was lumping a few of them together.
Sure.
Right. So I want to point out that Brian Tully does have a certain air about him that I think this next clip highlights nicely.
determinations that are ultimately come to by the medical examiner.
Oh yeah. Yeah. So you can see there it's funny because and thank you to the trial channel. The trial channel is just the greatest thing that ever happened to the world. I don't know what I would do without the trial channel, truly, because I spent so much time going back and forth in and out of all this footage. It would just take me an eternity. I'd have to memorize each and every testimony to find what I would need. And the trial channel makes that possible. So my God, my biggest gratitude I could give to you for what you do. You're amazing. And what made me think of that is, right, when I was watching the testimony for the first time after the trial of Brian Tully, I just was looking down. It was like a moment where the action stopped, and I happened to catch his reaction to the sirens. And then I realized that he believes, at the very least, that they are for him without a shadow of a doubt. And every time he hears those sirens, he gets this shit-eating grin on his face again, because clearly, at least from Brian Tully's brain, in his mind, those sirens are for him. That I have absolutely no doubt about, based on his reaction there. And every time it happens, his reaction. And of course, would that surprise any of us if that was the case? Of course, it sounds like it could be true, certainly, right? I mean, this is the kind of group of cops that would do everything possible to send a shout out to their buddy while he's, if they know he's testifying. And I'm sure they did, right? Everybody knew he was testifying, I'm sure. Sandra Gebhardt asks a really good or makes a really good point here. Sends 499. Berkowitz planted the taillight, called Buchanan, said he saw something and he should go pick it up. I saved the testimony. So that's true. But that was a few days later. I want to say that was on February 10th. Now, it might have been sooner, but it was a few days later. The taillight that we're talking about here on this day came from the CERT team. So they were hired by 2:00 that day. Lieutenant Tully calls up his friend from this special search team from an outside department. These guys do what's called like a secondary search. So in other words, if you're a missing person, you would call them to do the search. They're not like the first responders typically. They're like the special group. They're not even a full-time group. They come together from other outfits across the Massachusetts State Police, and then they work separately on this unit as a part of the CERT team. At least that's what Kevin O'Hara explained at one point, that there was only like a couple, if that, full-time members, that the majority of them just work part-time and come from other units. So on this particular taillight, these pieces came from the CERT team. You're going to see it. I'm going to show it to you in just a minute. And that was ultimately, they got very greedy. And in the days that followed, they decided to say, screw it. We're going to guarantee a conviction by smashing out the whole taillight and throwing it down. So, and then what they do is they say, one of those people is Berkowitz, is the chief. As the snow melted, the taillight reveals itself. That's sort of their tagline or their standard line about the taillight that they found in the not only days, but weeks that followed January 29th, where they in the end, they find over 40 pieces, like 45, 46 pieces of taillight. It's insane. Oh, and by the way, in case you don't know this, this was huge. Hopefully I'll find a place to put this in this series that I'm working on. But when the crime scene people put the taillight back together, there is a piece missing. And it's funny because it looks to be in the exact corner where we're told that the original missing piece came from, that top right corner. It's very, very funny. So there's a piece missing from the 46 pieces of taillight that they find. And it's funny. It comes out during it's David Yannetti that brings it out. I think it's the second trial, but it was the second trial. It's amazing. The woman on the stand is Ashley. My God, she's a crime scene tech, like a forensic technician. I'll try to remember her name. It's Ashley something. She's got the really short green hair, like, yeah. In the second trial.
At some point, you respond to 34 Fairview Road. Is that correct?
Yes.
And do you recall about what time it was that you arrived there?
About 5:30 p.m. Goal cases, he's keeping me updated by telephone so I can supervise from anywhere with myself.
So this is our boy, Lieutenant Detective Tully. And this is from trial number 1, direct examination. Does a lot of things during his testimony. One of the things he does is he explains the role of the CPAC unit, of their unit that work for the DA's office. He explains how they have an unattended death, how that's their jurisdiction in most counties to manage. In other words, the cops that come out of the district attorney's office, that's one of their designations, one of their roles. He explains that. He also explains how chain of custody and evidence works. And it's very funny. When you listen carefully and closely, it's quite different from how you might expect what you would expect him to say. And it's like that all the way through, but you have to listen carefully.
Phone. He's giving me updates about what he's learning. We will discuss what the next steps should be. And that's what transpired over the morning of January 29th.
Yeah, so really interesting. That question was about Yuri Buchanek and about them, is he supervising from afar? In other words, can he still be in charge of the investigation despite the fact that he wasn't on the scene the morning of the incident? And he's defending or explaining why and how it is that he can be the supervisor from anywhere with his cell phone.
Now, over the course of the morning of January 29th, what, if any, conversations did you have with relation to Canton Police Department's involvement or ongoing or further involvement with regard to this investigation?
I had spoken with the acting chief at the time, the chief at the time, Kenneth Berkowitz, about the involvement in the Canton Police Department. We talked about the homeowner at 34 Fairview and his relationship to his department. And because of the appearance of a conflict, we had made a decision that the Canton Police was going to take a step back from the investigation and that the state police would do the investigation without them.
Now, as far as that appearance of a conflict or...
You note that he uses we. We made the decision. That's really interesting. He's not saying he made the decision or they made the decision. He's saying we made the decision.
Step back, as you termed it. What was your understanding at that time as far as what the role of the Canton Police would be?
Really to provide support. So anytime we're in a local community, we need the support of the local police. If we're going to start knocking on doors, we want to make sure they're aware or present. They have resources in town, whether it be lights or barriers that we may need to access. So I would define it as a support role.
Now, with respect to those conversations you mentioned that you had yourself and what the then current chief, Kenneth Berkowitz, who, if anyone else, was involved in those conversations?
The district attorney.
That would be Mr. Morrissey, is that correct?
Yes.
Is that abnormal for him to be involved in conversations in regard to a police department and any sort of appearance of conflict?
No, it's not abnormal for him to be involved.
Mm-hmm. And as far as his involvement in his conversations, as far as you're aware, did they evolve or were they any greater or less than the conversations that you had with Chief Berkowitz?
No, they were the same conversations.
Right. So that's important, right? What he's saying there is so important. What he's just told us is that he's very close, or he felt very close to Berkowitz and Morrissey because they were a we, right? And that indicates these are my people. So he felt close to them, and they were making the decisions together. Right? So they were making the decisions together. Now that's important. And of course they were, because this was happening in Canton. And think about it. Brian Higgins, even though he's an ATF agent, he works out of the Canton office every single day. We know that because in his text messages with Karen, it's pretty standard practice when he's drinking to sleep at the Canton PD. He makes that clear. Remember the night of the football game, he goes back to the police department, right? So he tells us that that's like something he does. I mean, he is BFFs with the chief of police, Kenneth Berkowitz, who we're talking about. That's who he's talking about. This is Brian Higgins' best buddy. And guess who calls him at 6 a.m. on January 29th of 2022? Chief Berkowitz. And as Sandra is pointing out here, Chief Berkowitz is in the Sally Port with the vehicle when it comes in. And we know, because of Ms. Dever, that Chief Berkowitz and Brian Higgins were in the Sally Port with the vehicle for a wildly long time. So Berkowitz, however, we can see him. There are people that disappear and reappear in the video, in the Sally Port video, but one person who doesn't, because he's there the whole time, or pretty much the whole time, is the chief of police. He's the one that has the glasses in the video. He's got like the glasses and a beer gut, and he's shorter. You might think he's Michael Proctor at first until you see the glasses, and then you realize, okay, that's the chief. So the chief, however, we just learned, is involved in the decision-making with Michael Morrissey. So they're doing this together, right? They're in it together. And of course they are. That makes total sense. This was it's in the town of Canton. Brian Higgins is working in the Canton Police Department, and Kevin Albert is their best detective. That's a really big deal. Everybody who mentions Kevin Albert on the Commonwealth side sings his praises. I mean, they defend him even when there's no need to defend him because he's not involved, right? At least not explicitly. He was there. He was at 34 Fairview, guys, on the morning when this happened. So after John is found that morning, Jen McCabe tells us under cross-examination, trial number 2, that Kevin Albert is there. He's at the house with them during the Minion meeting when they're all sitting around plotting about what they're going to do now. Kevin Albert is at that meeting. He's at that house, along with Chris and Julie Albert, Brian and Nicole Albert, Jen and Matt McCabe, and whoever, the kids or the Albert kids, whoever. I don't know if Caitlin is probably not there, right? Because she's back at Tristan's with hubby. But whoever is in that house, in addition, that's who's at that meeting. And Kevin Albert is one of the people at that meeting. That's really important. So, do you see how close these people are? See how, they're it is so enmeshed. And one of the things that Karen Reed's civil suit points out nicely is that it tries to highlight the enmeshment. But I think it's even more enmeshed than we even can grasp, right? It's hard to see all these people as kind of one entity. But I think they were very much acting as one entity here.
So we concentrated that area. And so I talked to Lieutenant O'Hara that this is going to be our parameters. And he instructed his people how to deploy or to that area.
And so what, if any, involvement do you have as far as when they begin and how many people are involved or when they end or anything like that?
I'll have some consultation with Lieutenant O'Hara, but it's really his call to make.
Right. And one of the things that Brian Tully does here is he tries to sort of say that he's not so involved with the CERT team investigation on that day. That's really Kevin O'Hara's deal, right? Of course, that's not true at all. And Kevin O'Hara tells us pretty matter-of-factly that normally that would be true. Normally, I would be the guy in charge. But for whatever reason on this day, it's Brian Tully. And I put this in here for, I don't want to get into that now.
The fact that you were the ranking officer, the way that it works in a police department is everybody sort of reports up the chain of command, correct?
That is correct.
They would have all reported up to you in some particular.
That's correct.
And then, of course, you report to the deputy chief, and then the deputy chief reports on up to the chief, correct?
That is correct.
You were involved in not only the exposing of some of that blood byproduct, but also exposing the glass with the leaf blower, correct?
All right, so I want to make an important point here. This is Lieutenant Paul Gallagher. He's the guy holding the leaf blower. He was the guy in charge at the scene the morning that they find John. Now, he's not there when they find John. He's there, I think, at 7 a.m. he shows up. They find John at like 6:03 a.m. So he's there after the ambulance is gone. And they're there. He's called in because the Massachusetts State Police, Michael Proctor, at first says he's not going to come. At first, he turns this down. It's not until I think he has a conversation with Sergeant Good, like a second conversation, I think, where he then decides, okay, we are going to show up. But it takes like a while for them. They have to shovel out of their driveways, even though he only lives 4 minutes, by the way, from this house, Michael Proctor. But they agree to meet at the Canton Police Department, and I believe they get there around 10:30 in the morning. So somehow, somebody has to try to preserve whatever evidence they find at the scene, and this is the guy who tries to do it. He explicitly says that he didn't think that there was any crime here, but having done some deception analysis on this man, that is one of the handful of lies that he's telling. So he absolutely does believe there was a reason to preserve that evidence, and that's why he did. But he tries to say after the fact that there was no actual crime, that he didn't think a crime had been committed, that he thought it was a medical issue. That's a lie. He absolutely did think that a crime may have very well been committed, and that's the reason why he preserves the evidence. That's the solo cups and the leaf blower and the whole thing, right? The ShopRite bag or whatever it was. Larissa Harris sends $9.99, asks, have you seen what Loophole Lawyer does with Welcher and the paint in one of the recent videos? No, I have to catch up on Loophole. I'm like 3 videos behind because there's been so much going on. Like, you know, I had to listen to the whole civil reading, and it's just been really been so much going on. It's been very busy. Tully projecting Lucky. Yeah, not credible, unbelievable. He's such a lying. He is a lying fraud. I mean, I couldn't have said it better myself. He absolutely is a lying fraud. And the scary thing about him is, you know, he's got power. Like, they have given him, he's the henchman. You know, I can imagine we're going to hear from Aidan in an interview he did in a minute. It's quick. But yeah, what it was like for him when he realizes that Brian Tully's there with handcuffs, right?
That is correct.
A guy he's been talking about for a year, you know, almost 8 months every day. The guy he's writing about is now standing in front of him holding handcuffs.
You were responsible for utilizing certain equipment. You chose the leaf blower at the time, correct?
I did, yes.
There was also some plastic cups that we've talked about. We'll talk more about those in a second. Those were utilized as well, correct?
They were, yes.
And you were responsible for the use of those as well?
Yes, it was
So,
my decision, yes.
In terms of the search of the scene, the recovery of evidence, the recovery of biological material, the use of tools to recover those biological materials, all of that rested, at least ultimately at the scene, on your shoulders, correct?
Yes, I did.
Isn't it true that you weren't interviewed in this case with regard to anything having to do with this case until April 3rd, 2024, correct?
Yes, we can call it an interview. It's when I met with the prosecutor, yes.
And that was about 2.5 years, nearly 2.5 years after this incident, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Did Michael Proctor interview you before April of 2024?
He did not.
Did Yuri Buchanan interview you before April of 2024?
No, he did not.
Did Lieutenant Tully interview you before April of 2024?
No, he did not.
Did anybody else from the Canton Police Department, your deputy chief or the chief, interview you formally about your conduct and responsibilities before April of 2024?
I don't understand that question.
Did anybody at Canton PD, separating out Massachusetts State Police, did you sit down at Canton PD and provide an interview with anybody at Canton PD about your conduct at the scene?
What do you mean by conduct?
Going to the scene, collecting evidence, securing evidence, transporting evidence, booking evidence, those kinds of things. Your conduct at the scene, sir.
Yeah, I briefed my superiors, yes.
Okay, other than briefing, was there a formal report written?
No.
Or a formal interview conducted of you?
No, absolutely not.
So let's take a closer look at what Mr. Gallagher is saying here. Either he is lying about this question, or no Massachusetts State Police officer ever asked him a single question about the scene at the time that John O'Keefe was found on the lawn at 34 Fairview. What does that tell you about these cops and about this investigation? Right. So that's a little clip that I stole right before this for us from a video that I'm working on. So that's a really important question, though. That guy, Lieutenant Gallagher, was in charge of the scene. He saw where the blood evidence was. He saw where the glass was. He saw what appears to be the only legitimate evidence in this case really was. So if these cops had any interest in a serious, legitimate investigation, they would have asked him a question. Hey, where was the body? Where was the blood evidence? Where was the glass? Can you show me exactly where you remember seeing it? Can you show me where you were when? Right? But nobody asks the question, and he never writes a single report. He says, well, no, because I was the boss, so bosses don't write reports. But Alan Jackson points out, yeah, but in this case, you were not acting as the boss. You were acting as the detective, the lead detective. So you didn't write a report? And he says, no, I gave that task. I gave it to Sergeant Good or whatever. But it's a really good point. Nobody gave a shit about what Lieutenant Gallagher found that morning, because once they had their manufactured taillight pieces, they didn't care about any of the other evidence. It just did not matter to them anymore. They think they got their gal, right? So they don't care about the legitimate evidence. And that's the thing about this. What kills me most, I think, when it comes to these cops is not just the arrogance, but the way that they did not stop for a second. I mean, they couldn't have. They didn't have time. They did not stop for a second to say, maybe we shouldn't do this. Like, maybe we shouldn't delete ring footage because maybe the real killer is still out there. Like their arrogance, they never thought for a second they would ever get caught. That's the point. They never thought for a second. There was never any thought. Karen Reed might fight this. There might be a legal battle. There might be expensive, fancy lawyers that get involved. Who knows? Turtle Boy could find out and tell the world, right? Because they all knew who he was. Nope.
Are you trained in photogrammetry?
Yes, sir.
Is that to determine vehicle crash incidents or the circumstances surrounding them based on map scenes, evidence from photographs, things of that nature?
Absolutely. So photogrammetry is the science of extracting information, if you will, out of photographs. So things dimensionally about an object, spatially, without ever actually physically seeing the object or inspecting it.
Now, with respect to...
And for anyone that doesn't recognize that guy, that is Dan Wolf. He's Dr. Dan Wolf. He's the accident reconstructionist that the feds originally hired to determine, with very little information. They did not know who Karen Reed was or John O'Keefe. They were basically given a folder by the feds and said, hey, tell us whether or not this guy was hit by a car. And that is what they do. Then, before the second trial, the defense is able to, although it's a battle every step of the way, to hire them for themselves and give them more kind of tasks, like give them what the prosecutor was claiming in this case specifically, so that they could go out and refute it. And then they did a lot more testing after the fact. So the first trial, they did not do the same degree of testing that they did for the second, but they did testify. And even in that case, made it clear why it was that they did not believe an accident had taken place. And the critical thing we learned after the fact, remember the jury was hung on the first trial, we learned from one of the jurors who was interviewed by Turtle Boy after that trial that the jury thought they were like insurance, hired by an insurance company, had no idea who they were, or that, didn't see them as credible because he thought essentially, or they thought that they were, I don't know, I guess like scummy insurance guys. I don't know.
Those items that you recovered from 34 Fairview Road at the roadway in front of it, where were those items located with respect to each other?
They were in total within a 5-foot area. So if you're looking at the house, from right to left was how they were found. First was that first picture you displayed, which was the red piece of plastic. About 3 feet from that was the Nike sneaker. About 1 or 2 feet to the left of that was the clear plastic, and just next to that was another piece of red plastic along the curb of the road.
Right. Yes. This is how they are communicating where the evidence was in this case. This is how concerned the guy in charge, the big boss, is about the evidence, right? This is how he's describing where it is. It's kind of unimaginable. It's so absurd. It's like, how are you even saying this out loud without feeling embarrassed? Because it's ridiculous. You're trying to say that you're a legitimate detective, and this is the way that you're presenting the question, where was the evidence found? It was around like a foot or so away from, it's just insane. Let me just remind you that we are talking about a dead police officer on the front lawn of another police officer. It's unbelievable. And this is how the evidence is treated. Unbelievable.
Lieutenant Tully arrived on scene.
Was there anybody with Lieutenant Tully?
At one point, he had several other people with him. Maybe, I believe, 5 throughout our search. Maybe 5 different people, including him, were on scene.
Were those people part of state police?
At least 1, maybe 2. Unfortunately, I don't recognize all 2,500 members in our department, but there were probably about 5 total people on scene, sir. There were members with Lieutenant Tully that I believe were not state police members, but I wouldn't know how to characterize what their job description was. So
So this is an interesting testimony, right? What do you mean there are 5 people with Lieutenant Tully and at least 2 of them are civilians? Or you don't know what they're doing there, right? That's a pretty bizarre thing to have happening. Why is this is supposed to be this really important CERT team search? Okay. Why does Tully have 5 people with him? And why are at least 2 of them civilians? It is so bizarre. And I don't know if you saw this, but Alan Jackson was asked, Aidan asked him in an interview after the verdict, why didn't you ask Kevin O'Hara who they were? And he says, which I think was a really, very Alan Jackson-like point, right? Brilliant, really. Well, I didn't care. All I cared about was the fact that there was a boogeyman, right? I don't give a shit who that person is. Like what I needed it for was just to plant the seed in the jury's mind that there were other people there that, shouldn't have been there. But who they were exactly was just not that important to me. Technically, we know that Lieutenant O'Hara knows Yuri Buchanan and Michael Proctor. I'm not sure if you're going to see that in this video, but having been through this testimony many, many times, he's very clear about who those guys are. So had he seen them at the scene, it would have been very easy for him to identify them. We also see them on video back at the Canton PD. So I do not believe at this time that Buchanan and Proctor are at the scene. But God only knows who is there. It could be anybody, right? It's just not those 2. And remember also, they did give their DNA to match it with evidence in this case. I think they were the only 2, but both Proctor and Buchanan, at least their DNA did not match, I guess, whatever DNA was found on the evidence in this case. Now, I'm saying that hesitantly because, listen, could they have not been 100% honest about what DNA they compared their DNA to? Like what items their DNA was actually compared with? Absolutely. So I don't want to say that absolutely, but that was what was presented in the second trial, that Proctor and Buchanan did submit DNA and that an outside police officer from somewhere else came in to do a comparison of their DNA to, I guess, the DNA on the clothing or the vehicle and whatever other evidence. That is my understanding.
Was there somebody who was picking up any evidence that you may find and putting it in bags and preserving it?
After we located evidence, it was documented on scene by the detectives.
So you yourself were not documenting?
No, and again, that's maybe a little change in the dynamics. If I had been more of in an instant commander role, I probably would have documented time, location, again, for our internal records. The primary record will always be at the hands of the detectives. But because I was actively searching, the detectives handled all documentation.
How convenient, right? How convenient on this day, during this search, Lieutenant O'Hara, good buddy and pal of Lieutenant Tully, decides, I'm not going to document, not even for our records, because that's what he's saying here. He's saying normally I would have documented exactly where and what we found, even just for us, right? Because the detectives would always be responsible for, their stuff. Like, I'm not going to be responsible for their evidence. However, for our purposes, I would normally document it, but I didn't hear. And again, that smells like bullshit to me. No, this is a dead police officer. You don't think that it would have been important, or that you wouldn't have wanted to cross every T and dot every I, even if you're not directly responsible for the evidence, just because you don't want somebody to come around however long later saying, hey, let me see your log, let me see your notes, whatever. But he's got an excuse, right? One of the CERT team members didn't show up that morning, so he had to be on the line. And for some reason, that precludes him from being able to say, oh, at 5:21, so-and-so found this piece of evidence in this position. So wouldn't you know it, we don't have that. We have no idea. All we have is this guy and what he tells us, really. And we have some pictures, which we're going to take a look at probably in a minute.
We wanted to know what we were looking for. Specifically, Lieutenant O'Hara wanted to know, what are we looking for and what's the scope of the items we're looking for.
When you first arrived at Fairview and you looked at the scene, did you have any personal knowledge where any person had been in that area?
No, I did not.
Did you have any photographs or precise location of exactly where that person had been found?
No, we did not.
What, if anything, was going to be in relation to that?
Yeah, Lieutenant Tully had informed us that the victim, in this case, was struck by a vehicle. He believed there would be broken pieces of taillight in the area. He also stated the victim was missing his sneaker.
Oh, I just remembered this right now. I just decided at this very moment that I am going to go back and do an analysis of him, because I just remembered that one of the jurors was saying that this guy was so incredibly nervous, like she could see him like visibly shaking during the testimony. And, I'm just wondering, as I'm thinking about this, right? I don't know. I get he was a pretty important guy, and it'd be interesting to learn how much was he just kind of overlooking a few things and how much was explicit. It'd be interesting to note that.
That the victim, in this case, was struck by a vehicle. He believed there would be broken pieces of taillight in the area. He also stated the victim was missing his sneaker. So he asked us to search for both of those items.
And sir, at some point, did you ask Lieutenant Tully any questions about the vehicle in question or anything in relation to that?
After we'd found one or two of the pieces of the taillight, I asked him if he knew how much damage was to the taillight, or if he had a photo that we could get of the taillight.
And what, if anything, did he tell you?
He told us at that time the vehicle was being towed back to Canton PD, so he did not have a photo to show us.
Now, let me be really clear about this. They try, and Adam Lally makes a very serious effort during the cross-examination of Brian Tully, I believe it's Brian Tully specifically, to make it sound like the CERT team is happening earlier than it does, so that the jury can't tell whether or not the car was back in their possession before this search begins. Okay. That's what Adam Lally is trying to do. He references it as happening in the afternoon instead of the evening to try to bump it up, because what he wants the jury to believe is that they didn't have the car yet, right? So O'Hara is saying that he asked Tully, hey, do you have a picture of the taillight so we know what the hell we're looking for? And he says, oh, no, we can't take a picture of it because they're following the tow truck back from Dighton now, right? Back from Karen's parents' house now. But that's not true. Remember how Michael Proctor lies all over the reports to say that the car was confiscated later than it was. He doesn't realize that Karen's parents have a Ring camera. So they knew exactly what time that car left their possession. And lo and behold, It was much earlier than Michael Proctor claimed. Remember, he says it's a typo. It's a Scrivener's error. Doesn't know what it means, but that's what he says it was. That turns out absolutely not to be true, right? Of course it's not true. Of course they wanted the jury, the world, to believe that it was impossible for them to have planted taillight because they didn't have the car yet. Of course they wanted the world to believe that. The problem is Brian Tully was at the Canton Police Department at 5:30. And that is when Karen Reed's car, Lexus, is also at the Canton PD. So there absolutely is the opportunity for the two things to have crossed paths. And that's us being kind. Because the truth is, could it have been there earlier? Definitely. I think they had possession of the car at like 4:16 maybe. Something like that. Like they actually have the car turned over to them with considerable time to get back to the Canton Police Department, even with the weather, right? So, and you can't trust these videos because obviously, right, they have doctored and edited these videos like crazy. I didn't even realize this till recently, but apparently just before the second trial, there was a motion by the Commonwealth to allow for edited videos. I didn't even know that. That's why like the contrast is different on some of the videos and whatever. So they weren't even like trying to pretend like they weren't editing. It's just anyway, I'm going to get upset about that. It's so stupid. But the point is that they're trying to make it sound like, oh, it's impossible. We couldn't have possibly had taillight pieces. That wasn't our doing. We didn't have the car yet, but they did have the car. They absolutely, absolutely did. And the Canton Police Department is like 4 minutes from 34 Fairview Road. It is right down the street. Even in a snowstorm, it's like a 7-minute max drive.
And at any point, did he make any reference to who was coming along with the tow to Canton PD?
He said Sergeant Buchanan and Trooper Proctor were following the vehicle back to Canton PD.
See, so it's clear that he knows who they are. And as a result, it is very unlikely that they are the ones that are with him on the scene. But he's important. He's coming. Well, I'll wait.
And so as far as that initial phone call that you made to Lieutenant Harrod, do you know about what time of the day that was?
It was about 2 p.m.
And what was the purpose of sort of that initial phone call that you made to Lieutenant O'Hara?
To give him a heads up, because it needs to be a conversation up my chain of command. So above me, there's a detective captain and a major. My major needs to really talk to his major to make the formal request. But I wanted Lieutenant O'Hara to be aware of the request was coming so that he could at least start polling his people to see who was available to respond to Canton.
We were facing away from the flagpole originally. Eventually, we moved Trooper Bousselet's vehicle back towards the flagpole. Just we wanted some extra headlights to light up the scene, the area we would be working in.
Now, Lieutenant Tully, was he on scene when you arrived?
He was not.
And at some point, did you reach out to him?
Yes, I gave him a call. He stated he was just leaving. Canton PD would be on scene in about 5 minutes. That was probably around 5 o'clock.
Now, it's important. He's telling you it was probably around 5 o'clock. Well, he knows it was not 5 o'clock because even by Tully's own admission, the words out of his mouth are it was 5:30, which means it probably was later than that. If Lieutenant Tully is telling us he was there at 5:30, he was probably there closer to 6, right?
Now, as far as the house that you were parked in front of and as far as the residences on that street, who, if anyone else, as far as neighbors or anything like that, or people from the house, did you see outside the house while at any point in time?
We didn't see anyone outside the houses. A resident of 34 Fairview exited briefly after we were first on scene. But that was the only person we saw.
And exited came down to where you were, or where did that person?
No, he was, if you look at the house, you would consider two front doors, one closer to the garage, which would maybe be a mudroom or a den. Adult male exited from that door and a hooded sweatshirt on. He asked us if we were here for what had happened earlier. We said yes, and he walked back inside the house.
So this was an interesting statement. I clipped this because, and I don't know, maybe the answer is yes. I mean, maybe it's just obvious to people that if there's a second front door, that clearly that's a mudroom or a den. Is that what you would think? Is that what you would assume, that there's a mudroom or a den there? Because that was an odd thing to say. It just struck me as a strange assumption and a strange thing to say, that the homeowner came out of what appeared to be a mudroom maybe or a den. He's not saying he saw that. He's just hypothesizing about what may be on the other side of that door. It seemed like a strange assumption. That's all. So I clipped it. Just a weird thing to assume.
Now, as far as the...
because it is a den. Because that's exactly what it is. It's the family room, right?
The snow, as far as the roadway conditions of the area where you were in, what if anything did you know or observe in regards to the roadway and sort of how it had been treated as plowed prior to the plow?
The plow had really only cleared the center of the road. There was a good 3 to 4 foot snow drift coming off each side of the road. So maybe enough for 2 vehicles to pass, but not cleared curb to curb.
He's so nervous. He is so nervous. I'm seeing it now. I've not, like I said, I did not analyze him carefully ever, right? I've cut a lot of his video because he does say some really important things and he has important information, but I've never really stopped and like carefully examined him. And I can see that he's really nervous. His voice keeps cracking, right? So that's what happens when you're anxious. Your everything dries up, right? The saliva dries up because of mucous membranes, right? It's like the fight or flight response. He seems like really, really anxious. It's bizarre. Like, why would he be anxious?
He had instructed us that the death investigation involved a motor vehicle. He told us where the motor vehicle was believed to have been parked and wanted us to search from that area south towards the flagpole fire hydrant.
Yeah. Now, this is the important thing. I'm going to skip ahead here. This is the important thing here, okay? According to the first police officer on the scene to see and locate John O'Keefe's body, he is 20 feet. This is what he says, 20 feet off of the roadway on the front lawn proper of 34 Fairview. Okay. On the front lawn at 34 Fairview. Not on the side lawn, not on 32, but on the front lawn. Okay. 20 feet. I don't think there's 20 feet from the road to the fire hydrant. I don't even think that is 20 feet. I don't even know if that's 5 feet. This is a very small front yard. Like, it might be 25 feet total. It is a very small yard. It really is. So there is something that does not make sense to me about the location of the body from the cop's perspective. But either way, okay, either way, whether it's 7 feet, 12 feet, 18 feet, 15 feet, 20 feet on the lawn at 34 Fairview, why wouldn't you even consider? Think about this. They never go near the lawn to investigate for evidence. They don't go near it, not even near the lawn. And when asked about it, the excuses they give do not even they're not logical. It's like, what? What was that? So I think that's what's coming now.
How big an area was it that you initially sort of set out to see?
It was just over 50 feet, I believe. from the front door, which is the left door, looking at the house from the street to the fire hydrant, I believe it was 59 feet.
59 feet, which I absolutely do not believe. I don't even know that there's 59 feet in front of the house. I mean, but he's trying to say that side to side, right? Not from the roadway to the front door, but from one side of the property to the other, that they measured 59 feet.
Was that length or width?
That is length.
And as far as the width of the area that you were searching about, what kind of area were you searching?
It's about 3 to 4 feet was the snow drift coming off the curb.
Right, 3 feet.
After we'd found one or two of the pieces of the taillight, I asked him if he knew how much damage was to the taillight, or if he had a photo that we could get of the taillight.
And what, if anything, did he tell you?
He told us at that time the vehicle was being towed back to Canton PD, so he did not have a photo to show us. Well, like I stated, normally I would stay behind the line of searchers, documenting what they would do, more of as a command role. But because we were one member short, I wound up participating in the search more hands-on than maybe normal.
Who made the determination of the scope of the area that you would search?
I made the final markings of the distance we wanted to search, but we were guided by Lieutenant Tully's information he was able to provide for me. No, eventually we wound up going again. Our searches, we'll call it a grid search, but it's a line search where we're all lined up. Again, talking about critical spacing. If we're searching for a particular item on a search, we may use a replica item to say, okay, how far can each member be away from each other? Because this was such a small search area, our members lined up almost shoulder to shoulder. Once we were on a line, we would slowly move forward.
What
each member
line?
taking out snow, sifting,
So just to be clear, there's 7 people, he's saying, that are allegedly shoulder to shoulder. But the area that he just told you that they're searching is 3 to 4 feet across. So where are they? What do you mean 7 of us are shoulder to shoulder? Am I missing it? Is this just like right in front of my face and I can't see it?
Small layers, sifting it out at their own feet with a right flank along the curb in front of the house. That snow would eventually get moved out to the street where I was standing. I was the left flank on our line. I would then re-go through that snow, make sure we didn't miss any items or by accident carry an item that we were looking for over towards the middle of the street. Once I was satisfied there wasn't anything there, I would take that snow and throw it across the other side of the street. We moved my cruiser and Trooper Boussolet's cruiser at 5:20. We had started gridding off where we wanted to search, but at 5:20, that's when we moved our cruisers to put the headlights on. That's right, Trooper Bearden and the 2 sergeants arrived quickly after on scene, so by 5:24, we started, all 5 of us were lined up.
All right, so he's trying to tell you that everybody started at 5:24, and it sounds really exact, right? Because he's giving us these very specific times. The problem is that Lieutenant Tully is the only person at the scene who knows where they're supposed to be searching. Okay? So there's no way that they could have started at 5:24 unless or until Lieutenant Tully is there. And Lieutenant Tully tells us he doesn't get there until 5:30. So this can't be true, right? Somebody's full of shit. Either somebody's incompetent, right? Or somebody's full of shit. Because they both can't be true. And there's no way that this guy knew where to search. Now, on cross-examination, Alan Jackson makes this point, and he clarifies even further that they had to move the cruisers around because when O'Hara first gets there, he assumes they're going to be searching on the other side of the lawn by the driveway. So they're positioned in such a way where everybody has to turn the cars and shine the light on the other side of the lawn. And that, of course, takes more than 30 seconds, right? You have to get in the car, got to reposition the car. And none of that could have started until Brian Tully gets there and tells them where to go and where they're going to be searching. Right?
Shoveling, when the 2 other members arrived on scene, they just joined in on the line to help us move.
What line?
At some point, you respond to 34 Fairview, is that correct?
Yes.
And do you recall about what time it was that you arrived there?
About 5:30 p.m.
From when you first arrived at 4:56 p.m.
Unbelievable.
When you began the search at 5:20 p.m. Did you see
84.
anybody enter the area that you were going to search other than you or a CERT team member?
No, they did not.
Were there other people in the
trying.
area outside the scene of the grid that you were going to search, other than you and members of your CERT team?
Lieutenant Tully arrived on scene.
Was there anybody with Lieutenant Tully?
At one point, he had several other people with him.
We would know if we had it enough, or we had it all, I should say.
And what do you recognize that to be?
The front of 34 Fairview
All right.
Road in Canton.
We're going to get to just another few minutes of this. Look at the pictures. These are the evidence pictures, okay, that were taken by Lieutenant Brian Tully. It's just amazing.
And the flagpole I previously mentioned.
And if you could, using the laser pointer, just direct the jury's attention to what, if anything, of significance you observed in this exhibit.
So this picture was taken to memorialize this piece of red plastic here.
What did you note about the photography at the scene of the items that were being photographed?
Well, I think one thing that comes to mind is it was a little bit difficult to follow the evidence, so to speak. So typically, when I go out and do an inspection, especially of a fresh incident, let's say I've got a debris field or I've got tire marks, what I like to do is kind of step into the scene, if you will, where you take global perspective shots and then you step into a specific piece of evidence so that you can, at a later point in time, identify where that evidence is. I noted that in a lot of these photographs, I didn't see a whole lot of that stepping in. It was essentially just zoomed right into where that evidence is, but not really having a great understanding of where was it relative to all of the other evidence.
And again, Lieutenant, do you recognize what's up on the screen?
Yeah. I mean, look at these pictures. This is how they took photos. And they get closer, not farther away. Like, they get closer. So you get pictures that are like on top of the taillight, but you never see like two pieces next to each other, or like a global view of like, okay, here's where everything was, right? Never. Even despite their efforts to tell us that we saw something that we didn't see, which I'm not going to go over now because it's a whole other can of worms. It will take another 2 hours, but you will see it soon. I am going to present it. I'm looking for one little detail that I want to highlight before we switch from this. Let me see.
Of the snowbank.
Can you describe where the sneaker was found?
Sneaker was flush up against the curb and it was inverted upside down.
Again, sir,
There's the
what's up on
sneaker.
the screen as exhibit 120.
Yes.
And if you could, using the laser pointer, direct the jury's attention to what, if any,
Where the hell is that? Like, where is that? That could be any curb in the world. That could be any sneaker on any curb, anywhere, in any street across the United States. Okay. So how do you even know this is at 34 Fairview? It's just insane. It is so insane. And they're presenting, you see like the way they present this, like this is completely normal and totally legitimate. And there's nothing suspicious or awkward about it at all. It's completely normal. Just totally normal.
in this photo.
What?
A black Nike sneaker with a white sole that was recovered in the snowbank.
That's the sneaker we located up against the curb. You can see the snow in the background.
Here's another
That's the
one.
flagpole in front of the house. You can see it's still snowing at this time.
Could we see 121, please? Insert,
Even
can you describe
closer.
Again, what that
Gotta
is?
get closer.
Just a close-up photo of the sneaker we located up against the curb.
Is that curb the black area to the right?
Correct.
You
sir.
can't tell
How
me
high is
also
that
that
curb?
Hank Brennan never figured it
I'm
out,
not
right?
sure, sir.
Come on.
I believe in total we located maybe 6 or 7 pieces of taillight. Maybe 6 or 7 pieces
Right.
of
Maybe
taillight.
6 or 7.
Yesterday, there was some testimony about taillight pieces that were found at the location, correct?
Yes.
And again, sir, do you recognize what's up there as 127?
Okay, I'm not going to go into this, but there was not 6 or 7 pieces of taillight. I'm just going to say that. We will talk about this a different time, I promise. But for now, what you need to know is that Brian Tully kind of screws this up, right? Because he tries to tell us that things are one way when really they're another way, right? And he's very committed to making sure that we see things the way he wants us to, even though it's like smoke and mirrors. That's just not what happened, right? It's wild. It's absolutely wild. So I'm forwarding past this just because it takes a lot of time. But let me see.
Was it a search that took up the whole front yard and street of that area?
Our focus was on the street. We really didn't touch the front yard at all. We started to go over the curb at one point to see if we could search the grass area, but we could not properly definitively say we were searching it well. As we started to move the snow, we couldn't really differentiate down to the grass level.
What?
And as far as beyond the curb area, as far as grass or the front lawn, was the CERT team members, from your observations, able to go beyond the curb into the front lawn area?
No, they're having difficulty shoveling with plastic snow shovels onto the lawn, from the lawn.
I mean, are you serious? Seriously, though. Like, really seriously. Like, so what he wants you to believe is that, think about how convenient this is, okay? John O'Keefe's found 15 to 20 feet off of the roadway with one shoe and no jacket, and hands bruised. Everybody knows the injuries: cuts on his face, cuts on his nose, bruise to the side of the head, right? No blood, 6 or 4, whatever, little tiny drops of blood, droplets, right? Certainly not liters or pints. Not a single question by any of these police officers. Where's the blood, guys? Hey, wait a minute. Maybe we should slow down. There's no blood here. Look at the gash on his head. Look at these injuries. There's no blood. Don't we think that's a little suspicious? Nope. Not this group. Never asks a single legitimate question at any point. Just they don't care about what evidence was really uncovered, because what they care about is having, as he just told you, enough. That's what Brian Tully cared about, which he gives up by accident, right? That's leakage. He accidentally tells us that what he cares about is having enough, right? Enough taillight to make the charges stick. Just like Michael Proctor tells us, that's another animal he's not going to be able to prove. So we know all these guys are looking for on this day is enough evidence to put Karen Read in prison. That's what they're looking for. They don't give a shit about what was really there. They don't care who was there, what they were doing. All they care about is having enough evidence to put Karen Read in prison. Period. They don't ask a question about, honestly, after this initial day, I'm not even sure. I would agree that Proctor believes that, I think, at least at some point. The problem with this, though, the problem with Michael Proctor is that he really was the lead investigator. And believe it or not, he did do some investigating. Not a lot, but some. Like, for example, he knows the state of the taillight. He knows that it wasn't smashed out, right? So he knows there were not taillight pieces at the scene, that they were put there. He also knows that there was exculpatory video evidence that needed to be deleted. And guess who is the only person who could be forensically found to have handled the ring video footage? Oh, of course, it was Michael Proctor, right? He's the only one who handled the ring footage. That's from Yuri Buchanan's mouth. And of course, if that guy could find any way to make that not true, he would have made sure that we knew it. Because the last thing that Yuri Buchanan ever wants to do is throw his BFF, Michael Proctor, under the bus, right? Last thing that Yuri Buchanan will ever want to do. Loves Michael Proctor. Loves him. It's absurd, but they have their little love affair, right? So that's the thing. And I'm guessing actually from Buchanan's perspective, he knows that Michael Proctor is being thrown under the bus and that it's totally unfair because this is a cultural problem. It's not Michael Proctor. He's a symptom, not the problem, right? The problem is up there. And of course, he knows it. So it is just this whole situation. It is so, it's at a certain point, Michael Proctor must have started to see enough evidence that the thought started in his head. Whether or not he ever allowed them to grow into a full, like, logical equation of any kind, I don't know. But I do think he had the evidence in front of him, and it was a problem for him, which is the reason why shit's deleted, stuff is left out, police reports are, have typos all over them, because the truth was inconvenient at best for all of them, not just Michael Proctor, for all of them. And nobody knows more about this case from the police perspective than Brian Tully. He is all over this case. And you know what other case he's all over? Even more so, because in the Aidan Kearney case, he literally fabricated, created, worked with crusty panties. Literally, that's who he worked with to fabricate a case against Aidan Kearney. They literally changed the names of his show titles to make them sound incriminating. And in some cases, the names they chose are just, as absurd. It was like, instead of seeking justice for John O'Keefe, it's like, intimidating Colin Albert, it's like not to testify. It's like, it is so over the top. It is so absurd. It is so just like blatant, like completely absurd, right? Brian Tully is the guy changing the titles. He's doing it. He's saying it. Yep, that was me. He has a file on his computer that completely exposes that he's inventing a case on Aidan Kearney. And the question you need to ask, well, why? Wait a minute. Why is there even a case against Aidan Kearney again? Oh, because he's exposing not only the people in the house at 34 Fairview, but the district attorney himself and all of these little minions, right? They're being exposed. That, it is disgraceful. It is as clear a case of corruption as you can get. It's as clear a case, right? Their motives are irrelevant. It doesn't matter what they're motivated by. Look at their behavior. It doesn't make a difference whether it's they believe Karen Reed did this and they're, entitled because they want to see justice, or they know she's innocent. Doesn't make a difference, because either way, what they're doing is lying and colluding to affect the outcome of whatever it is, whichever case we're looking at or talking about. It is unbelievable.
And get them on the bus and then across the street, and their bus stops at the next house a couple houses away, and so they could definitely see this happen. A truck pulls up as I'm trying to go into my driveway, walk up the driveway, and a guy gets out and he's got a vest on, and he's like, "Hey," I'm like, "Can I help you?" And he's like, "Yeah, you're under arrest. We got a bunch of warrants, and put your hands," and he starts putting me in cuffs. And I'm like, what is happening? What is going on right now? What? And then all of a sudden, 6 other unmarked cars pull up, And one of them pops out and starts reading my rights, and it's this guy named Brian Tully. And Brian Tully is the lead, the head detective lieutenant at the State Police Norfolk County unit. And so he's like the head honcho of the Karen Reed investigation. He signs all the paperwork, etc. So I'm like, I've been extremely critical of this guy and accused him of being involved in the cover-up of John O'Keefe's murder. And so the guy that I'm accusing of being involved in the police cover-up of a murder is now at my house arresting me for doing exactly what I did, accusing this guy of being nefarious, thus proving my point here. Like the guy that's accusing them of cover up and having all this influence and getting people outraged about this, you're now at his house arresting him. They had a search warrant for my house, and which I thought was ironic because they didn't get a search warrant for Brian Albert's house.
For the house where the dead body was found out.
I say I should have, if I threw a dead cop on my yard, they would leave me alone.
Right? Think about that. How crazy is that? So they got a search warrant for his house. Why? Why? What? Right? Okay. You want to say his computers? Okay. Because that's where his job is, right? His phone? Okay. But his house? But no, we can't get, according to Brian Tully, there was not enough probable cause to get a search warrant for Brian Albert's house. A dead police officer is on the front lawn, and people in the house are telling you they were drinking together last night, and the intent was for them to come here. Guy's got no coat on, one shoe. Right? So it's just, it's just so upsetting, these people. It really, really, really is. And you're exactly right. Miles 1 6.0. The harder they try to push the blame on Karen, the deeper they go. It's like a teeter-totter. These people don't know when to stop. They double down and double down and double down and double down. And it has been their downfall from the very beginning. The first trial, Morrissey thinks, well, we can't, for example, we can't have Trooper Paul. We have to hide Trooper Paul. So everybody coming into the second trial, all the cops, everybody, Burgess, Welcher, they're all prepped that when asked a single question about the CARS team, the CARS report, or Trooper Proctor, to say they don't know anything about it. I don't know. I didn't read that. I didn't see that. Because if they don't say that, and they mention him, then all of a sudden Trooper Paul can be brought into the second trial, right? So, and this just is one very small example of the way that Michael Morrissey tries to double down from trial 1 to trial 2, thinking that by doing something like that, trying to erase Trooper Proctor from the whole world, because he's embarrassing, but P.S., he's the guy that they used to say that an accident is what killed John. You can hide it all day. It's still what happened. He was the guy, right? That was their accident reconstructionist. And Welcher can hide it all day too, but guess what? He certainly billed the Commonwealth for spending many hours looking through that CARS report and spending time on Trooper Paul's testimony. Right? Too bad we didn't have those receipts for the trial, in time for the trial. But all that Michael Morrissey has done is make one bad decision. It's like any time there's two options in front of Michael Morrissey, and there's clearly a right choice, and then a clearly catastrophically disastrous one in front of him, he can't not make the wrong choice. So at every turn, these people, this man and his henchmen and all their little cronies, double down, double down, double down, double down. And the only thing it's done at each step of the way is backfire, 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 backfire. And it's going to keep doing that until, I mean, think about it. If you're in that house, you're Jen McCabe, okay? Remember, the reason why I like to highlight Jill Daniels, the woman who tries to grab if you saw my open, she's the one that's like, why do you care? You didn't know, John. Why do you care? You didn't know, John, right? She's the sister of Julie Albert. She's the one who's so angry and so overwhelmed with emotion that when she sees Aidan in town in Canton next to the pizza shop where Chris Albert is, this is the sister-in-law of Chris Albert. She sees Aidan near the pizza shop and literally in her giant SUV, big white monster car, pulls up in this crazy way next to him on the sidewalk, gets out and literally assaults him. Literally, physically assaults him. I'm fucking sending your shit. Grabs his phone. Now, mind you, the only thing that he had done is go get food at the CF McCarthy's. Like, he just went in to get food. Truly, that's what was going on, right? How do we know? Because there's video evidence of it. The whole thing is recorded. So my point is, these people were so flipped out by Aidan. They were so flipped out. They did everything they could to try to stop him. And of course, just like with Michael Morrissey, every decision they make is a bad one. They double down. So what did they do? They kept trying and they kept trying. And they did things like not only bring in Krusty Panties, but try to set up Aidan. They bring in Lindsay Gattani. Oh, perfect. You're sleeping with Aidan Kearney. Awesome. Let's bring you in and we can keep him out of the courtroom, right? Bad decision after bad decision after bad decision, all in an effort to try to shut him up, to stop all of us from knowing about this case. Okay. Okay. Well, how is that working out for you guys now? Not only, think about it, not only are you being sued in this 1983 whatever action, we don't know what's going to happen. We don't know if it's going to be in a federal lawsuit. We don't know if it's going to take a decade. We don't know. But that's not even the bad news. The really bad news, if you're in that house, is that there's this guy named Adam Deitch who was personally involved in the investigation into the death of Boston police officer John O'Keefe. He just sold his house, quit his very cushy, easy job where he would have had a nice pension, you know, the whole thing. Job he probably loved at the prosecutor's office for the feds, to become the district attorney of Norfolk County. So not only do they lose their cushy protection in Michael Morrissey, right? Not only do they lose that and their henchmen and Brian Tully and their little minion cop teams, whether it's Buchanan and their witness advocates, Steve Nelson, whoever the hell it is, but they're going to get an adversary, somebody who, by the sounds of it, now I'm only guessing on this, I do not know this for sure, but one thing that seems very clear is this guy, Adam Deitch, doesn't think Karen Reed did this. And if Karen Reed didn't do this, somebody did. Right? Somebody did. So then, if you're Adam Deitch, who did this? If it wasn't Karen Reed, right? If you are any member, anyone who was in that house at 34th Fairview Road, if your name is Jen McCabe right now, life sucks. And just when you thought it couldn't get any worse because it sucked the day before, this is very, very bad news, right? This is really bad news because if this guy wins, not only, like I said, you lose your cushy protection in Michael Morrissey, who was doing anything they wanted, would have bent over backwards to try to get Colin Albert out of this case, they went to the greatest lengths possible. Who knows how much money these people have given to Michael Morrissey over the years? But I mean, I can only guess it must be thousands and thousands of dollars. Why the hell else? Either that or they're blackmailing him, right? I mean, it's nuts. But man, if that guy is elected to take over that office, oh my God. Yeah, Michael Morrissey should probably leave town. Yeah. I see you. I see you. Yeah. No, I know. He does. But he's not going to be there forever. Right? And listen, I will tell you, Scott, I completely agree with this. Look, these people are not done, right? They're going to, Michael Morrissey looks so bad. I mean, just on purely aesthetics, just on how the appearance of all of this, if you're Michael Morrissey, this is how you want to go. You want your career to go? You want to go out like this? I mean, this isn't going to go away. Okay, your friends and family are going to tell you, everything is fine. You're going to be fine. But the truth is that anywhere you go in the world, people are going to recognize you and you're never going to shake the stain of this. It's there forever. Right? I mean, these people are pissed because they know, right? They know that they're fucked. And if this guy, Adam Deitch, becomes the DA of Norfolk County, could you imagine? Could you imagine? Imagine how many of those folks, the people that were involved with either Aidan's case or Karen's cases, Karen's trials, think about what it must be like to be them. Can't be good. Because like I said, okay, Karen didn't do this. Well, somebody did. Oh my God, you guys. It's crazy. It is a crazy, crazy story. I mean, look, maybe the thing we've all been asking for, if you think about it, how long we've all been asking for the feds in this case. Still every day, Denise and I were talking about this yesterday or the day before, trying to get attention on this case, trying to get investigators from the FBI to be interested in this case so that it can be properly investigated the way it should have been from the start. Right? Hello? Everybody's geofence data, everybody's cell phones. Where were you? Let me check to see. Let me check your alibi. Let me check your cell phone. Let me check your extraction. This is a dead police officer. And not only that, they allegedly could you imagine? They put him in this job, John O'Keefe, to protect him from harm so he could be there for his niece and his nephew. And this is what happens to him. Man, I tell you, these depositions, what are these people are in big trouble. Big trouble. Because one thing is for sure, you can try to kick the can down the road for a very long time and probably be successful at that. But there is a clock on Michael Morrissey. And unless he plans on, I don't know, rigging the election equipment, I'm not so sure that, is that a year? He has less than a year left on, right? I'm guessing that the elections would be November of 2026. So we are less than a year away from a new DA. And if this guy wins, could you, it's I'll be at the celebration for that. I can't vote in the election, but I will be at the party where we're celebrating that he wins. Not just because maybe that's the best shot we have right now that we know of getting justice for John O'Keefe, but because eradicating the corruption in this county is like a dream, right? Think about it. No more Sandra Birchmores, no more lawsuits, no more Brian Tully or Yuri Buchanan, and never, please God, do we ever have another Michael Proctor anywhere in the world, not just in Norfolk County, but nobody, no police, none of us need a Michael Proctor coming to the window of our car when we're, give us a ticket or to knock on the door. None of us need that from a police officer. Like, we just need, you don't need to be perfect, but like just like a decent human being would be nice. Yeah. Look, maybe it is. Maybe it's just too much to ask. All right, you guys. Like I freaking feared. I'm so upset. I wanted so. I like, you don't understand. I spent like at least an hour and a half putting together my Jen McCabe montage for tonight. But I feared that there was so much going on, we weren't going to get to it. 1 a.m. It's not. It's so annoying because my intent is to present the Jen McCabe cross-examination so that we can go through it together because, like I said, it's like really, really good stuff in there. I mean, depends on how you define good, but like at least there's a lot of intense and important stuff in there, right? A lot of stuff that indicates collusion and corruption and deception and important deception at that. Michelle, if you're still listening, you asked me earlier and I wanted to respond to this. I actually did do it in a video right after I saw your chat. I immediately quickly made a correction on the video I was going to show us about Jen to answer your question. And it turns out that Jen McCabe, from what I can tell, now I did not check the cross-examination footage from trial number 1, but it does appear that in trial number 2, now correct me again, if you guys know different, please let me know. I am always open to being wrong. In trial number 2, there was a correction or an addition added to Jen's story that Matt McCabe yells down to her as she is making coffee in the kitchen and she's about to walk outside. Karen Reed is allegedly like in her walkway with with her like driver's side car door open. And she says that Matt yells down to her not to drive with a broken taillight. That I could not find in trial 1, but it was very much in trial 2. So just throwing that out there. And the reason I'm saying that, I mean, Michelle, you asked about it, but again, remember, and if you were with me 2 days ago, Monday, I guess today is Wednesday, right? I don't even know what day it is anymore. On Monday, we talked about how Jen she comes into both trials with an agenda. She has these things she's got to hit in her mind, both very specific like statements that she needs to make and a larger objective, right? Like she's got it's like you're planting statement evidence is really what she's doing throughout. Okay, both trials. But what I noticed actually from trial 1 to trial 2 is exactly what we were just talking about. It's like they doubled down again. They didn't give a shit about any of us because they figured if they do it right, she figures if she gets it right and she can convince the jury that Karen Reed is guilty, they don't have to worry about any of us, right? It doesn't matter anymore in their minds. This is what they're thinking. If they can just make this stick on her, then the heat is off of them, which wouldn't have been true anyway, by the way, but nonetheless. So the thinking is like, who cares what anybody else that knows what we said last time thinks about what we're saying this time? What matters is that we say whatever we have to make the jury believe that Karen Reed did this. And you can see it in the differences, because I went back today and I did exactly what somebody suggested on Monday. I did a side-by-side comparison on a specific topic. I went back and compared her last time testimony to this time. So when we meet again, maybe we'll do Monday night. Maybe we'll just make Monday night a regular thing until we get through this. Because if we don't, with the Friday stuff, with Aidan's several extra motions, and God only knows what the DA's office is going to do or going to say in response to him, maybe what we'll do is we'll add Monday to the docket for the next couple of weeks, because why not, right? We might as well. Oh, you did. I just saw it. It passed so quick. I see that somebody in the chat said that they're able to see the two different voices. She's got more than two. There's a couple, but there's my sister, Jackie. Hi. Sister's here. Sis, hello. Oh, that's so nice. My sister's a real deal, and I have known this since I was teeny tiny. Jackie is my little sister. So she'll always be like little Jackie, even though she is very much not a little anymore. I could go out and on a story after story to back up the fact that my sister has a special something, not to mention well, thank you so much, sister. I love you very much. And those were incredibly kind words. My sister is also quite special, by the way. And we are very, very similar. That said, Monday night, I think we're just going to do it. Now, I know we've got Thanksgiving next week. Crazy, right? Cannot believe it's freaking Thanksgiving next week. It's like nuts. So we're definitely doing Monday. Let's see. I don't know. What do you guys think? Are you going to be around on Wednesday? I think actually I can do Wednesday. I think. I don't know where I'm going to be, but I think I can do it. Maybe, well, you know what I'll do? I'll put up a poll on a post and see what you guys say. If you're going to be around Wednesday night or not. I feel like Wednesday night before Thanksgiving is in some places like a go out night. I don't know if that's still a thing. I certainly haven't done that in a long time, but I feel like people do, right? Because it's kind of like a homecoming time. I don't know. That was like a long time ago for me now, but maybe people still do things like that. I have no idea. I did just almost like kind of have a high school reunion event recently. It wasn't actually that. It was a birthday for a friend from high school. And essentially it dubbed as a high school reunion of sorts, which was interesting. Nothing really changes, guys. Just newsflash. Doesn't matter how much time goes by. By the end of the night, the same people are hanging out with the same people doing the same thing they were doing in the lunchroom in 25 years ago, however long. So, all right, you guys, you're the bestest in the whole world. I cannot thank you enough for your support of me. And as long as you're here, I'll be here. So we're kind of one. We're kind of married at this point. And thank you so much to all of you in the chat. I really believe it to be like the greatest chat in the world. She said, "Oh my God, go Spartans." You did not just say that. Yes, go Spartans. I haven't said the word Spartans in like a really long time. That's awesome. That is, I guess, my high school mascot. So I'm sure it's plenty of other people's high school mascot also. All right, everybody, enjoy the rest of your Thursday, very early morning, or Wednesday night, very late night. I will see you again on Monday. Hopefully Denise will be there with us, with me on Monday too. And my sister is with us as well. And all of you, everybody, enjoy the rest of your night. You guys are the best, and I will see you, and God only knows what will happen between now and then. Good night, everybody. Good night. Good night, everyone. Goodbye, everybody.
It is the defense counselor's duty to protect the rights of the individual, as it is the prosecution's duty to uphold and defend the laws of the state. Justice for all. Only we have a problem here.
I live inside my own world of make-believe. Kids screaming in the cradles, profanities. I see the world through ice covered in ink and bleach. Cross out the ones who heard my cries and watched me weep. I love everything. Fire spreading all